All right, it is 5:30. Time to start our early meeting this evening. The hour having arrived at 5:30 p.m., I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and Channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter the doors of the meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda item under discussion. I will not recognize, after being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had a chance to speak to the topic. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. The written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. And our minute taker is participating remotely, so from time to time we may have a little difficulty hearing. She might want to clarify something, so please check your microphones to make sure they're on. With that, we have full committee present, and we're ready to get going. This is an early start this evening as we are beginning our budget process. So we'll take normal business first and then move into the budget process. The first item is Roger Weinreich.
Good evening, everybody. Just still around a couple people have COVID in town, so still wearing it on occasion there. So I'm here representing the Keene Downtown Group. I work at Good Fortune, 110 Main Street. I have a condo at 51 Railroad Street. I also live up in Gilsum. And as I mentioned at the last council workshop, I've been following the career of Jeff Speck for a number of years, and Jeff is considered the foremost downtown urban designer guy in the country and maybe the world. And reached out to him a while ago and found out that he very much loves our area. He has property nearby here, and he said, I'd love to come help you guys out. He knows sort of what's up. Did some investigative work. Also went to the city manager and mayor and asked if they would join me on a Zoom call just to meet him, to see if he's for real and look at the transparency. And basically the downtown group is committed to bringing Jeff to Keene. Mark, our chair, is going to talk about that next, but we picked a date of June 12th, which is really the only date Jeff can make it for the foreseeable year. He's all over the world. And what I like about Jeff is he comes in with a very clean perspective. So he's not in favor of bike paths or roundabouts or anything specifically unless it works in a community. And he already gave us a few, very simple ideas of things we could do to increase the walkability. But his first comment is always, do you want more tourism in your town? And a very real question, because if a community doesn't want tourism, they shouldn't really do anything with walkability, he says, because walkability does draw people and seems to be the biggest draw going on in the country right now. So I hope you'll entertain the idea of contributing $5,000 to our campaign. We're already well on the way with the campaign, and it seems like a really great public-private partnership. The ideas that Jeff brings us, we can take or leave. He'll come in, just to give you a rough idea of the format, have lunch with as many of us as want to meet him. He'll spend hours on the sidewalk doing some research, taking pictures. He'll go back to his hotel room for a few hours, do his workup, which from what I understand, he actually works on it ahead of time for quite a bit of time. He'll be doing a free presentation at Heberton Hall for the public, followed up with a dinner. And the next morning, if we've got interest and we've got the support, he'll do a large Q&A breakfast workshop session just to highlight what everything means in terms of dollars and cents, not just of execution, but what it will bring us for potential revenue and good spirit and livability in our community. So thanks for listening, and here's Mark Robillard. Right? Sure, that's you. Yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Mark Rebillard. I'm a resident of Keene. I'm the current chair of the Downtown Group, and I'll be presenting to you guys again today for the Ice and Snow Festival, which I also produce. The Downtown Group was really excited about this opportunity. Jeff Speck is an internationally known urban planner who's written the book on walkability for downtowns. Businesses have started to come in with a fundraising that we're doing. The downtown group is committed to $1,000 to bring him to Keene in a unanimous vote. Businesses like mine, like The Works, like other businesses up and downtown have started to contribute. And the local crowd has a fundraising drive, which has also been matched by the Keene Co-op for $2,000 to help bring him here. So there's a lot of buy-in already, and we're only about 36 hours into our ask. So there's a lot of people and a lot of citizens and a lot of businesses that really want to make this happen. So we're really excited about it. I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get some really good information, stuff that we haven't heard yet, about how to make things walkable. And it's apolitical. It's not in favor of a roundabout or not in favor of a roundabout. It's not in favor of platforms or not, or, you know, it's not like that. This is information from an urban planner who will take a new perspective on what we're doing. And I think at this critical juncture, we can use all the information we can get. So I thank you for considering this.
Thanks. Anybody else from your group want to speak first? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Taryn Fisher. I'm wearing a couple of different hats. I'm a resident here in Keene. I live at 302 Court Street. I'm a member of the Keene Downtown Group as part of, as a small business owner. And I'm also a business advisor with the Small Business Development Center here in Keene. And I teach at Keene State as well. Lots of hats. I am very, very supportive of having this gentleman, Jeff Speck, come to Keene, because I think this is a wonderful opportunity to open our minds to different ways of thinking about our downtown. You know, before this conversation, in my mind, there was a very sort of two-sided debate. Do we do a roundabout or do we save the square? And what I've come to realize is that there are many different options. And a gentleman like Jeff Speck, who has very broad experience in walkable downtowns, the proposal is to have him come to Keene, do some research, do some looking around, talk to some folks, and then provide us with a fresh point of view, from an outside-in point of view. And so I'm really eager to have my mind opened up about the possibilities. We're so early in the process, we don't have to make any decisions today, and the potential is huge to come out of this very extensive project with a really dynamic downtown. And I think this is an initiative that the Keene Downtown Group is leading that could potentially help us all to come to the best possible solution. So I'm very much in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah. So I did participate in a Zoom call with Roger and Mr. Speck, and I have his book. In fact, I had the prior version, and I have his current version, his most up to date. Thank you, Roger. And it is quite interesting. He has done a lot of designs in downtown areas, and they're all different. They take a look at, not only, what we have in place right now, but the side streets. He looks at sort of how the whole downtown operates, and creating a more walkable environment is certainly something that we have been striving for. So if the council is in support of this, we do have the funds in the downtown project, and I did check with court to make sure that was the case, to cover the $5,000 request, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Might be a two-part question, actually, maybe for the downtown group, which would be, first, would the focus just be on downtown, or is this more expansive also to the West Street corridor, to Court Street corridor? Where would the specific focus be there? And as well as what materials would actually come out of this? So, say, for example, I might not be able to make that specific date. Will there be a recording of the conversation or reports or any documentation presented back to us in that fashion?
So I think most of the work is downtown specific, without talking to Jeff, but it's focused on people coming into the community. One thing about it is we really are committed to getting the information out, so we know we can only fit 150 people into Heberton. So we're going to video it. We're going to, if the city can simulcast it, that would be great somehow. But we want people to look at it, because what he said to us is all the work he does around the country, and it's super well documented. He said it's really based on the populace deciding what to do, if they want this or that. And one thing that he helped me understand is to be really open-minded about something is hard for me personally, because I was hooked on the roundabout idea tremendously. So I asked him about that on the call, and he said, I can't tell you anything, but he said, you in your central square, and he's looking at probably maps from the air, who knows what, he says, you've been presented with an intersection with lights, you've been presented with a roundabout, he says, but you have not been presented with some other ideas that have been done in that style of intersection. So he said, you just need to see them. And again, I'm kind of open to the idea, okay, what if what he proposes is different? But the last part of your question is, he said we'll come away with small to large things that can be done at any point in time. So he might look at one little intersection, like he talked to us about Eagle Court and Emerald Street, for example. And he said there are places where you can work stop signs or directional signs that don't cost you anything, that are huge. So the hope is we'll come away with a list of things, and we'll pick and choose from that list.
I have a question. Don't go away.
Yeah.
We talked about having it at Heberton Hall, and it would be limited to about 150 people. But with this kind of money that you're asking for, I feel that it should be open to a much larger part of the constituents to be able to attend. Have you considered maybe either Keene State College auditorium or the high school or another larger venue?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first we even thought, the Colonial Theater. Like someone had told us if we brought him for Radically Rural, he would fill the Colonial if people knew not a month ahead, but a few months ahead. So we have. Part of the college, for me, I love the college. Someone said to us, well, let's keep it more in downtown physically, but certainly we don't want to turn people away. So a good question. So we're fluid. If we move the venue the day before and have signs up, we can do that. We also don't really know what the turnout is going to be with this kind of lead time, so we do want as many people there as possible. But that's a great point for sure.
If I could contribute to that, also, Fact TV comes with Heberton Hall, and we plan to have it videoed, and then we engaged with a local internet provider or advertising provider to publish that and make sure that it's available for everyone to see. So while that's our first go, it's not to say that there's not certainly a possibility to open it to a wider audience as we start to see attendance grow to this, which is certainly what we want to do.
Yeah, I did hear when Roger mentioned that it would be taped, but it's not the same as people
Being there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're asking for the city to invest, I would want to make sure that there was ample room for our citizens to be able to attend.
We also wonder about some of the follow-up work that Jeff does. So the morning after, he hosts a Q&A work session, and that could be big too. So we could invite the public. So part of it is we want to hit our target goal and pay his fee, but we'd like to be able to take some big rooms at the Marriott Hotel or somewhere and have a lot of people come in the next morning to sort of work hands-on, because one of the fun parts about being with him, I've heard, is that if you can work with him on the street, it's sort of in real time. So we're also hoping we have a good turnout for people for all these other little events.
Thank you. And, I don't know if it's a question or a thought. I haven't gone all the way through it yet, but one of the concerns I have is that we're midstream through a process right now. and we have some very polarized opinions within the community, one way or the other. And I'm curious how he'll be impacted by being surrounded by a group with a certain opinion during his entire visit, and how that will work for him.
So I kind of asked him a question around that topic because I was curious initially, what do we do? Jeff, have you seen cities like this? And he's like, this is absolutely normal, he said. He said, you're at the stage where there's information, misinformation, there's emotions, and he's not out to quell it all, but he's just going to give us a couple more looks at some things we haven't looked at. You know, on my list of all I want to tell everyone in the world, my wife said, well, you're going to talk to Dory, right? So right after our Keene Downtown Group board meeting at the chamber, I walked out and there was Dory watering some plants, so I started talking to her, and we got along just fine, and she saw my passion and whatever, and she said, well, Roger, is this about Save the Square? And I said, actually, it's not. This is about another doctor's opinion, you could say, or something like that. So I think it won't be polarizing. I think Jeff has a really good political hat. He ran the National Endowment for the Arts in D.C. for years. He's well stepped in politics. So I think he's just a good persona to be the person who delivers a non-biased message. And that's what his goal is. He gets hired by Stantec whenever they can get him, and they don't get him much, but he told me, you know, there are a lot of places he goes to work where they just have him come in to show something in another way.
Thank you. Just like Councilor Remy, I'm not sure if this is a question or a concern, I'm just kind of reading the itinerary, both what's here in the letter and what I've seen in some of the emails going around about Jeff's visit. And I see things like lunch downtown with key individuals, dinner downtown with key individuals, breakfast Q&A with key individuals. Yeah. And the way it reads to me is VIPs, and I want to be clear. I think that Jeff's message is great. I think that this could be an interesting thing. I find myself concerned about using taxpayer dollars to fund lunches and dinners and breakfasts for this visitor and VIPs and supporters. I have to kind of separate my own personal thoughts about his ideas with, you know, my duties as a counselor and my duties to abide by ethical standards. And I don't think I can reconcile using taxpayer funds to fund dinners, lunches, breakfasts, personal outings, drinks, whatever, with an out-of-state visitor and his friends in town. Do you have any information, or can you clarify anything on the key individuals?
Yeah, so one, I think our goal is to target the $12,000, which is his fee, and that's specifically what we're looking for from the city and some of our key donors. Going beyond that would be funding the breakfast workshop, a lunch, et cetera, a reception before. Jeff is kind of vague on what key individuals means, and that's really up to us to decide. So from our vantage point right now, it's anybody and everybody who wants to plug in. Like he said, you're the right scale community, he says, where you can have people come out of the woodwork and say, I want to put my hands in this thing or hear more or work more. So we don't want to be selective. We don't want to say, hey, we're going to invite this and this person. We really would like to hear from people who wants to take the walking tour with him or who wants to meet with him in the morning or have lunch, you know. In bigger city, he can't quite do it like that. So he's giving us kind of a small city model of what we could do for interaction so people don't feel alienated. But I totally share your consideration about, we don't want to be buying food and buying things with our money, but that's not the goal for this raise.
I think that's a great thought, Counselor, and that's something that we want to completely avoid. And I think to Roger's point, we're interested in trying to raise money first and foremost to bring this guy here, because we have this once over the next 2 years we got one shot to bring him here. So in the 36 hours that we've had to kind of put this together, or what, a little more. I think our meeting was on Friday when we started to do this. So in the week that we've had to put this together, it's been a little bit ready, shoot, aim. But your point is duly noted. This is about bringing as many people to the table as possible, and this needs to be a public event.
And that's where we need help, and that's where the question, about, the space and the venue is really important. Like, we want the biggest venue. Like I said, we know it can't be the Colonial because he doesn't like to be in a place where it looks half empty if that's what happens. We went to the showroom first, but they're closed that day, but they're smaller than Heberton. And what I'm kind of excited about is the idea of a public-private partnership. Like, for me to see the donor list already and people kicking in little dollars and bigger dollars, and with a small window, this is the kind of thing most of us would rather say, let's plan it a year out, but we're just kind of jumping in. So the considerations about the money, the efficacy of things, ethical natures of all that, super important. So we also feel if the city did the whole thing, for example, which plenty of cities do hire him, that's okay, but from our vantage point, it'd be cool to get more pedestrians and taxpayers involved at that level, because it's such a big expenditure in whatever shape or form it takes that we might get even more participation, and that's good. So if this unfolds and the city becomes a stakeholder in this with the rest of the downtown public, totally open to ways to promote it, to get people there. Like, this is where we need help. We absolutely need help, especially with this kind of window. So we kind of thought if the city, comes in for part of it, that's a show of like support. But we'd also be looking to all the council and say, what do we do? Like, how do we make sure, I want city staff to go. It's not mandatory for anybody to go, but it'd be fun if everyone says, this is a fun event, let me go to this part or that part and see what we get out of it.
Thank you. The timing is very interesting because before the full council takes a vote on this, we will have had a special MSFI meeting to talk about the plans for downtown, which could come out, unlikely, but could come out with a recommendation. Doubtful, but it'll be interesting to get that group's weighing in. And one of the things, no matter what we vote tonight, it will come back before full council after that meeting. So it'll be interesting to see if I reserve the right, regardless of my vote, to change my mind next week after hearing the results of that first MSFI special meeting on Monday. So,
Cool.
that's, I think.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points that have been raised by members of the committee. I don't see too many free lunches for that fee, so people want to pay for their lunch, that's all well and good. So I just see it as a great opportunity for us to get a little more information that will be very helpful to us either now or in the future, and very helpful, I think, to all the business folks, because I'm sure he'll have something to say to each one of you as he goes by your place that will be very helpful to you and others in the future. So, any other members in the public that want to speak to this before the committee deals with it? I'm seeing none. Is there a motion?
Move to recommend the city council support a contribution of $5,000 to facilitate a visit from urban planner Jeff Speck regarding planning for walkable cities.
And I second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes 4-1.
Thank you.
you
Can
very
I add
much.
one little quick thing here, which, it's what I've taken away from some of Jeff's books already, simple things, because as a business owner, what makes it work? So one thing in his book, it jumped right out at me. He says every 25 feet, the streetscape has to change on the sidewalk. So my building is kind of a bland building. We don't put planters out. So I've learned from him there are little things we can do as business owners. But on this call with him, he was talking and he was presenting himself. This is what I'd love to do with you guys. He said, here's an idea you can do if you don't hire me. And he said, and I can give you lots of ideas that are free. And I was like eager. I was like, okay, what's this? So he says, do you know the intersection by Eagle Court and Emerald Street on Main Street? And that's where my business is. Ted's across the street. And Jeff didn't know I owned the business or whatever. But I'm like saying, yeah, I think I know that intersection. And it's one that's, in my mind, we've had lots of pedestrian accidents. It's hard when we pull out left or right. It's hard on people going to the co-op. It's hard on walkers. I never thought of what do we do with it. So, and he didn't say anything about it's in failure. So he says, well, what you want to do right there is put in 4 stop signs. And I wanted to ask him what he meant, and he just interrupted me. And he said, just think about it, play with it in your mind. And then I said to him, well, could we put stop signs in Central Square? And he says, absolutely not. So I think we're going to come away with small things that might be obvious or not obvious that we'll pick and choose. You know, I don't think it's going to be something grandiose, but he could also bring in something new. So thanks for the support and really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second item, acceptance of the 2023 Wellness Grant.
Good evening. I'm here this evening seeking a recommendation from the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee that the city manager be authorized to accept a wellness grant in the amount of $2,100 to be used for employee wellness activities. Our health insurance vendor, and it is a adjunct to their wellness programming, provides the opportunity for communities to have wellness coordinators. They train those coordinators, and they give them the chance to develop custom programs in their own spaces that meet the needs of their workforce. In our organization, we have 4 wellness coordinators. 2 of them are part of the HR department. 1 is from parking, and the 3rd is a finance department employee. And this past year, they've done a variety of efforts, including blood drives, financial wellness efforts, monthly health observances, sent out educational pieces on the plan and the plan's features and how to better use it. One effort that they're working on later this month is being part of organizing a financial health fair, which we'll be doing financial fitness health fair for, well, it's financial fitness, so it's not really health, but it's, you know, I think it's health. Later in May for employees at the Blastos Room. If the money for some reason isn't expended fully this year, they can carry it forward to support activities next year. So it's, would like your support.
Questions, members of the committee? There are no, oh, yes. Counselors in the audience? Members of the public? Seeing none, the motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend the 2023 Wellness Grant from Health Trust of $2,100 to be used for employee wellness activities.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? All in favor? We're off to a good start. Mr. Bohannon.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The first, Andrew Bohannon, Parks Recreation Facilities Director. So the first item before you tonight is a donation of a tool shed by the Cheshire County Conservation District to be located out at Monadnock View. So this is truly a collaboration, and over the last few years, you've accepted various donations from different organizations, mainly the Monadnock Growing, it's the Monadnock Gardening Club out of the Antioch University, who has been kind of spearheading the initiation across the city to improve access, food access to various individuals, and working with the city related to our gardens out behind Monadnock View Cemetery. When we started working with them, we were probably, there's 3 rows, there's a total of 52 lots. We were probably selling maybe like 19, 20 of them, and over the last couple of years, we've almost sold out. This year, we're fully sold out of those lots. And so there's more people out there utilizing the gardens, producing more food, and so 2 years ago, we accepted a donation to put irrigation out there, so there was a water spigot, so people didn't have to run a hose and they could get the water right at their end of their bed. They're working on another grant to get a 3rd spigot out there. We've done Eagle Scout projects to do a pergola, to provide some shade so people could have a place to kind of gather, and now a tool shed that would allow access so people don't have to put them in their vehicles back and forth. And this is a grant that they received to work with Benson Wood to build the shed, and so they're donating it to the city for the purposes of the community gardens. And I think that the best thing about this is over the last, Roland Russell from Antioch University. I just have to highlight him because he has been so instrumental in making this all happen. He's a huge advocate. We're thankful to have him. He communicates extremely well to this community who uses the gardens and promotes the gardens. And without him, a lot of these efforts wouldn't happen. He also maintains a few extra gardens. And over the course of just last year alone, he produced over 500 pounds of produce that went right to the community kitchen. That was all fresh. His goal is to increase that every year. So with that additional garden shed, that should help part of that solution. So we wish him the best of luck.
Questions, from members of the committee? Counselors in the audience? Any member of the public? If not, motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept a donation of a tool shed from Cheshire County Conservation District for the community gardens located behind the Monadnock View Cemetery.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one opposed, unanimous.
Thank
Do
you.
you have the next one?
I do. So the next one is for a contract to be signed with, for $34,962 for the Robin Hood Park Improvement Project. As you recall, a few years ago, I was in front of you related to a Weston and Sampson report in 2019 related to the condition of the city pools. Through that process, we brought forward a program within the CIP to, as a placeholder for the replacement of Robin Hood Pool, knowing the condition and the report stated that it has about 5 years left of longevity. We're about 3 years from that report. We are doing everything we can to sustain that pool. But what this particular project will do is engage the public related to Robin Hood Park and the need for a pool, or if there's an alternative that they seek. We have the CIP scheduled for 27, and so this will help us guide us a project for this coming CIP development with community engagement and what that could look like. So we went out to bid. We received 4 bids, did interviews, and Dubois and King was a successful contractor. If you recall, they did their project last year for the dog park and disc golf course. Same team. They had led some good community engagement process, and we continue to hope that they do that for this particular project.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? Any members of the council? Public? If none, motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a professional service contract with Dubois and King for design services required for the conceptual design of Robin Hood Park for an amount not to exceed $34,962, and with funding to come from Project Cost Center 65J0018A, Robin Hood Park Improvement Project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, City Engineer.
So before you ask for money, let's have a sit rep on how the project's going.
Well, I was going to begin with that because it's good news. As everybody, I think, in the city knows at this point, the Winchester Street project is well underway. The good news, I guess, is that this season has gotten off to a really good start. They're making a lot of progress. Earlier this week, the remaining truck apron on the Key Road roundabout was poured. That's now curing, and in about 2 weeks, they'll start doing the the sidewalks and curbing along the outside of the Key Road intersection. So that's going well. Anecdotally, at least, I've heard from a number of people that the configuration as it is now in a roundabout sort of traffic pattern seems to be working really well, moving the traffic very efficiently, even though it's only one lane in each direction right now. So that's the good news. Next week, the contractor will begin disassembling the Island Street Bridge. That bridge has been closed now for a couple weeks, and they've done the utility work there. Next week, they'll start actually disassembling the Bailey Bridge. And as you may recall, we're having them salvage the components of that bridge for hopefully potential reuse on a rail trail project. And I should also hasten to mention that at this point, we don't actually need money. But we're in a situation where the project had a certain amount of funding. We've awarded the contract over the course of the last year or so. We've given them a number of change orders to account for unexpected circumstances, things like asbestos pipe that we didn't have records to show, or conflicts between the elevations of utilities where they had to add fittings and reroute utilities around those conflict situations. So right now we're at a situation in the water fund where the available funds that the council has approved for the project are getting a little thin. In terms of the general fund and the sewer fund, both of those funds have pretty good project balances remaining that's available for the city manager to use her authority to issue small change orders. But the sewer fund, we're down to about $5,000 of remaining balance. And that's just the difference between what we've contractually obligated to the contractor versus what the city council has approved for funding. And that's not a problem per se, but if we do have another unanticipated issue that arises that's above that $5,000 limit for the sewer fund, what it could mean is we would have to put that work on hold until we could get to the city council with, authority to add more funds. So we're trying to be a little proactive. Now, the Wetmore Street project, you may recall a few years ago, there was a failure on the Wetmore water main branch, and we did some emergency repairs. At the time, we asked for a budget on that project of $65,000. We have about 14,000. Let me see here. $14,430 that was unspent from that work. Mostly that was unspent because the water and sewer crew, our own city crew, was able to actually do a lot of the work themselves, and we saved some money that way by doing that work in-house. So that work came in a little under budget, and we're recommending that we reallocate the money that you approved for that project towards the Winchester Street reconstruction project. It's there if we need it for, an unexpected circumstance, and if we don't need it, it'll just remain as unspent project balance for other uses.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? City councilor? Members of the public? I guess we're good. Whose motion is it?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to reallocate the remaining unspent project balance of approximately $14,429.55 from the Wetmore Winchester Street Main Repair Project, Water Fund Project number 34JI024A, to the State Bypass Utilities Project, also known as the Winchester Street Reconstruction Project, Waterfront Project number 34JI016A.
And I second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Aaron?
Hello, good evening. Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director, Operations Manager of the Treatment Facilities. Here tonight to request reallocation of funds and have those funds be moved to the 1.5 million gallon storage tank repair project. Just a little bit of background on the tank itself. The city owns a 1.5 million gallon tank. Everyone's probably very familiar with the 3 million gallon tank up behind Robin Hood Park. The 1.5 million gallon tank isn't so obvious, but it's in that general area. It's completely buried and is nearing 100 years old. The tank is due to have some improvements made, specifically to its roof and capping system. And in 2013, Ty and Bond engineers performed a facilities evaluation for the city that really became the blueprint for our CIP projects. And this was one of them. And in November of 2021, the city contracted with Weston and Sampson to provide engineering services for this project. And we put the project out for bid last year and received one bid in August of 2022. The bid was over budget, and we also had some bid alternate work in there as well, and that came to about another $200,000. So with the bid being over budget and only having one bidder, we decided to go back and modify the specifications to try to get a better price. And what we did was we removed all the bid alternate work, so it's just the bare bones of the scope. The concrete repair work, which won't be noticed if at all needed until the earth is removed from the cover. It was also removed, so if it does need to be done, it would be done on a time and materials basis through a change order versus the contractor having to carry that in his base bid. And we also rebidded the project in the early spring instead of mid to late summer because, again, this is going to require some construction, earthwork, and then there'll be some loaming and seating on top of this new cap. So it was to give the contractor some more time. We got two bids last month. One of them is pretty similar to its previous bid last year. And so that's where we're at. The city's consultant estimated around $350,000 for this project, and we had about $340,000 allocated. And talking with our consultant, it's just difficult to predict, how construction bids are going to come in. There's still labor shortages and the increased cost of labor. And project costs vary from project to project, so it's difficult for the consultant to kind of estimate based on their experience. And you can see the variation in this project where we had one bid and the other bid was 33% higher. So therefore, staff is, recommending reallocation of funds from the following two projects. The Drummer Hill Tank and Pump Station project is complete. The city constructed a new water storage tank up in the Drummer Hill development, as well as a brand new water pump station. And that is also complete, and there's a project balance of $139,109.12 left in that fund. And then there's also a project balance of $167,645.40 from the Elm Street cleaning and lining project, from fiscal year 19 and 20. And as Don can speak a little bit more to this if you have questions, but that was really evaluated, and that cleaning and lining project for Elm Street was really determined that it'd be a better candidate for a larger water main instead of cleaning and lining. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Committee? I can assume that you're comfortable with the changes you made to the project, that it's lowered the price, but are they things that you're gonna face in a year?
Maybe. I mean, some of the bid alternate work included some work to the outfall. So where the tank drains kind of down over the hill, it's a pretty steep embankment. We were going to put in some stairs. There was also an underground vault that we wanted to move those utilities above ground and put them in an above ground building. So, staff didn't have to do an entry. There are things that, maybe down the road we'll reevaluate, but this is really, the meat and potatoes of this project really is protecting the cap. It's flat right now. We have water that pools up and ponds on that cap. It adds to weight. So if you have a heavy snow load and a heavy rain, it could be a structural concern, and that's why we want to put a new cap on it, have it sloped, so it, you know, moves the water off of the structure.
Thanks. Our counselor has left. Any members of the public? Have a motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to reallocate $139,109.12 in the remaining project balance from the Drummer Hill Tank and Pump Station Replacement Project, Water Fund Project 34JI014A, and $89,701.88 in funds from the Water Main Cleaning and Lining Project, Water Fund Project 34MI0400, and move these funds to the 1.5 million gallon storage tank repair project, Water Fund Project 34JI002A.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
Not specifically tied to this, but it's reminding me that I feel like it's been a while since we've looked at a sheet with project balances remaining, because the last three things we've been pulling money from different project balances that have been lingering out for a while. This one, we're leaving $80,000-ish in the Elm Street Fund. So I'm just wondering what other funds are out there, and I think during the financial transition, I don't know if I've seen that report. So, thank you.
That's right. Further discussion? All those in favor? All
Thank you.
opposed? Unanimous. Thanks. Next item, one of our own,
Do I go down there or just stay up here?
whatever you'd like to do.
I'll stay up here.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Not to drag this meeting on out any longer or delay the budget conversation, but this is something that has been on my mind for a little while. And I finally decided that if I don't send in a letter now, I'm never going to. Basically, it's come out of a few conversations I've had with some constituents, some thoughts I've had before I came onto the council about committee meetings, boards and commission meetings being more accessible to the public, and public workshops, public hearings, public meetings being more accessible to those who are of working age and working class. Kind of the motivation for this was our housing report presentation a couple weeks ago, and I know that was a great presentation. My concern was just that it was held at 3 p.m., between 3 and 5. Sure. Yeah, the first one. And the concern I had with that, hosting it at 3 p.m., is that a lot of the people who are really impacted by the housing crisis right now are at work during that time. And my concern is that it makes it difficult for us who are impacted by the housing crisis, because I've been trying to buy a house for 3 years and, I gave up. It's tough to give feedback. Even I, as a counselor, it's tough for me to give feedback, especially when you're working during the day. Also, during my last 2 years on the council, I've noticed that some of our committees that meet in the morning have high attrition rates, especially the Energy and Climate Committee. It seems like it's fairly rare that we have a council meeting in which we are not either accepting a resignation or accepting a nomination to the Energy and Climate Committee. And that just has me concerned that perhaps the timing of that is part of what the problem is, that people can't make a 9 a.m. meeting because they're at work. So I just wanted to start a conversation within the council about how are we timing these meetings, these public workshops, boards and committee meetings, and can we find a better way to time them in the day so that more people can be involved. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that the city has done anything wrong. I know staff is doing yeoman's work to put together great presentations, great workshops. I'm on a couple committees myself, and I know that the staff liaisons go above and beyond to host great meetings that are productive. I just want to make sure that we're using their time in the best way possible. And I'm happy if this goes on more time so that we can take care of the budget and deal with this at a later date. But I just wanted the council to, have a conversation about it.
So we did take a look at the boards or committees or commissions that are meeting before 5 p.m. There's not a lot. We have a lot of boards and committees and commissions. The challenge really is finding a time for them to meet, having the space for them to meet, and having a staff person to staff it. So with the vast number of boards, committees, and commissions that this city has, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that are during the day. They are Energy and Climate, Ashlet River Park, the Bicycle Pedestrian Path, the Heritage Commission, Conservation Commission, Historic Commission, Minor Project Review Committee, and Airport Development Committee. And what we do with those committees is we do annually with all of our boards, we try to take a sense from the membership. Now, it doesn't get to the point about people who aren't involved and part of the committee already, but about times of availability, because we do have a mix of people participating. Some of our volunteers are here and they're being paid by their employer to be here, and so it's more convenient for them to be here during the working hours. And then we have other people who are citizens who are coming in and they are doing this, outside of their work schedule. So we do try really hard to accommodate the maximum number of people. The other challenge we have is the space to meet. And, different committees require different things in terms of minute takers, space to record or broadcast a meeting if it's necessary. And so that's obviously a challenge. And so I do hear your point about taking input for some of these larger topics like the housing study and the community power. And we do try in those situations to hold multiple meetings, one during the day and an opportunity at night as well, because we try to get the largest audience we can. And I know with community power, we even had a virtual one as well. So, not for every subject, but for the ones that we know will be greatly impacting the community, or there'll be a lot of interest in the subject, we try to do that. We try to make sure that that happens. The other impact that this would create is an impact to the library. The library also has a variety of meetings that, and they set their own schedule. So I gave you a prepared motion, and I'm sure it's not the one you wanted, but basically it's a compromise that talks about, making sure that our staff liaisons are annually serving their membership to ensure the meeting times are fostering the greatest level of participation possible. I think the other thing that we could do is, if we are seeing turnover, ask the question why. Oftentimes we know why someone is leaving, such as the Energy and Climate Committee. They'll let us know. They're moving. Whatever the case may be, their work, they just don't have the time in general. And so we could, really try to make sure that we're tracking that better, so that if we aren't getting participation in a committee or a board, and we're having a lot of vacancies, we can determine if it is in fact the time of day or the day of the week that the meeting is being held. But I don't have the number of total boards and committees, but the ones that meet during the day are a very small number in comparison to the total.
Just to add to that commentary a little bit, I did a quick count of the boards, committees, including council, and I got 22 or 23, I think it was, for ones that meet during the week normally. And the scheduling piece is the difficulty of trying to get them all after 5 o'clock. On average, you only have 21 business days in a month, so you'd have to double up at least one, or I guess 2 committees a month, which would be difficult. But I definitely have heard some of the same feedback around not necessarily the boards and commissions, but around our ad hoc committees. So I think back to the housing stability one that we had last year, which we had good participation, but I'm sure we would have had even more if it wasn't during working hours. Or the ad hoc downtown steering committee. I personally wasn't able to make it because I had to work during those hours and wasn't able to get there, and would have liked to have had that opportunity. So, if we were looking to move forward with adjusting some of those times through a motion like this, we would need to really, I think, focus in on a certain subset of those, because we can't do all of them. So whether we put this on more time to discuss this, like you said, after we get through the budget season, or if we just go with what the city manager put here, I'd be open to a couple of those.
Thank you for that. I served on the Downtown Infrastructure Committee, and there were a bunch of meetings I wasn't able to make because I was at work. But when we did have that one big public session, one of the big comments I heard, in addition to a number of other comments, was that it being held at 3 p.m., a lot of people felt that they were kind of closed out of the conversation. And so that was another motivating factor to bring this forward. I'm okay with the motion you brought forward to us, but I would still like us to think about these ad hoc meetings, these public workshops, these public information sessions, and find ways to make sure that we're giving the same access to people who do work and who are only available in the evening as we are to those who, are not working during the day and have time during the day to participate. And I do just want to add, I appreciate all the efforts city staff has been putting in to host these events and to host, our boards and committee meetings, serve as staff liaisons. They really do a lot of work, and I see it firsthand whenever I go to a Concom meeting, and I do really appreciate all their hard work.
I have an idea for a slightly modified motion. Just based on your last comments there around the ad hoc committees specifically, just to ask at the end of what's written here to ask the staff to come back with a proposal on how we might handle the ad hoc committees specifically. For the standing ones that we have on here, even like to your point, Human Rights Committee, I'm looking at the calendar right now, Energy and Climate, Bicycle Path, where there's standing recurring meetings that are ongoing for years. Yeah.
So those are the mayors.
I'm happy with telling him he has rules on it too.
Right. I just wanted to point that out.
No, yeah.
So that might be beyond staff's control in terms of
Maybe it's a proposal. that
maybe
we
a
follow?
proposal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah. I appreciate that feedback that those are not staff scheduled, but if we can come up with a proposal for some guidelines on how those could be scheduled, then that might help us. Would you rather we do that through motion here or put this on more time? Because I think the motion's pretty simple. If we. All right. Cool.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with the longstanding committees that have met year after year, like for instance, I'm on the Ashwell River Advisory Board, and we've had discussions, like, is this meeting time working for us, is it not? And there are a couple of people that work. Some employers, like CNS, I think is one of them, that encourages community involvement and council involvement, and they support you going to meetings. But usually the committees that I've served over the last 12 years, we usually talk about the time and whether it works for us. And like the one in the morning, there were a few people that wanted it a little bit later, like 8:30 instead of 8. And then there were a couple people who said that they worked, so 8 was better, so we compromised at 8:15. But I've found that we tend to talk about it and find a time that works. And I know that, like, this committee that I'm on was really concerned about this item. And I know feedback from people that are on bike were concerned, they like the morning meeting. So it's so complicated. Like you said, like you're having to coordinate schedules of staff, schedules of rooms and when they're booked. And then, I found that the one that we got the most pushback on and that people were so angry about was downtown. But that's just such a hot topic. And it's true. I mean, it was 3 in the afternoon. That's tough for a lot of people. So I appreciate this being brought forward, but I think a lot of the committees that have gone on for years and years seem pretty, I mean, the ones that I've either served as a minute taker when I worked for the city before I became a counselor, and the ones that I've been on as a counselor, they always discuss it and try to find, to accommodate whoever is on that committee. And usually when you accept that committee, you're committing to that time. Like, I wouldn't take a committee that doesn't work for me, but I understand wanting to make sure we accommodate the public and we make sure that they're engaged and that, you know, we take into consideration their work schedules and providing different times. But
Yeah, and I completely agree for the standing ones. I think for me, the more the concern is the ones where it's a short window of time where we're trying to gather as much information as possible and come up with a plan. Winchester Street, though, is a great example of where it might be different. The lower Winchester Street is all businesses that may want it during the day, right? So that's where it's to your point, it's really difficult to make a decision on what's right for each, so.
So may I suggest we will have a conversation with the mayor, and I do think, though, that there are some of these ad hoc committees, like you said, that are really working better during the day, and then there are going to be some that you know, work better in the evening to get broader participation. I'm just nervous about amending the motion to direct me to do anything about ad hoc committees created by the mayor.
Yeah, I understand, you know, coordinating schedules can be difficult. Anyone who's ever tried to plan so much as dinner with friends knows that finding a time that works for any three people is practically impossible. So, yeah, or family, especially family. But, you know, the last thing I want to do is throw a wrench in the gears of how our boards and commissions work. You know, I really just want us to have a conversation, you know, every now and then think about it. Hey, you know, is this working, you know, not just for the people who are on the committee, but the public as a whole who, you know, has a stake in these boards, commissions, ad hoc committees, and, you know, the public education and outreach events that we do. So that being said, I would be fine with the motion on the table, or I'd also be fine with putting it on more time so that we can do the budget.
Move to recommend that the city manager work with public body staff liaisons to annually survey their membership to ensure meeting times are fostering the greatest level of participation possible for membership
Second.
and the public. And the public.
Moved and seconded, any further discussion? All in favor? No one's opposed? Thank you. Next item is a resolution for funding.
two. Oh, right, budget.
It's not good when the attorneys walk out. It's not a positive sign for me. Good evening, Don Farquhar, Fire Chief. I can speak on Resolution R 2022-33, which is a resolution related to fiscal policies. The resolution is asking for a transfer of funds from the police department to the fire department's budget for this fiscal year. The amount of money we're looking for the transfer is $380,672.84, and that will be offset by projected budgetary savings in the police department's personnel budget of $405,341. To break that down a little bit for context, as published in the resolution, the funds break down as follows. In personnel overages, the first one is labeled as overtime training, and that has an amount of $42,893.44. Although labeled overtime training, a very small part of it is actually for overtime for training. For the third fiscal quarter, we use that line item to track overtime to fund the 10th person. And we did that specifically to capture that as a specific number for recovery of federal grant funding for COVID expenditures. And so the large chunk of money, although labeled overtime training, is actually hiring for that 10th person for that fiscal quarter. The next slide items for both the ambulance and fire parts of the budget is labeled as overtime sick replacement. So in combination for overtime sick replacement between the fire and EMS budgets, it's $181,833.43. That is mostly overtime, but also a chunk of that is FML, family medical leave, and workers' comp. Our family medical leave was very high this year, mostly attributed to a giant run of babies in the fire department, which was wonderful. So we have a whole bunch of new fathers there, and they're able to use their family medical time to spend some time with their families and young ones. There's the last section in the personnel overages is labeled as overtime for multi-alarm. That line item, again, is a bit of a misnomer. We've kind of split that apart in next year's budget for better clarity of what's coming out of there. That line item in the existing budget is sort of like a grab bag potpourri of things. A chunk of that was also for a quarter of the 10th person again, and then largely that's callbacks for fires and really shift coverage of any time. So if someone has to take off a shift for a class, or we have to cover some for a period of time. So although it says overtime multi-alarm for the $105,000.68, it's actually for other items. And again, next year's budget, we've been able to rearrange that so we can track those costs more accurately to what actually the drivers of them were. The three line items that are in the operating overages section also directly correlate to our supplemental requests for the upcoming budget, and that's EMS disposables in the amount of $15,718.08. And that's directly attributed to a very large call volume and also some specialty care equipment that we have brought online to improve our medical care in the city. And some of those disposable items for that equipment is expensive. Vehicle maintenance also directly related to call volume. We're asking for another $27,156.80 in that line item. And then the last is protective clothing, and we're looking for $8,071.03 for that line item. That particular section, the fire department's budget, the protective clothing, we got into a really bad place with that. We've been able to do a lot of work this year. We worked with our vendors. We measured everything. We really went through it piece by piece by piece. We're able to work with our vendor to recover some costs on some items that were out more quickly than they should have. And we were able to get some private grant funding for some equipment, which was a blessing. That's something that we normally wouldn't get in our normal operating budget. And we are also asking for another supplemental, as I said, in this year. And we believe that will really right that program, and we have that just as a very smooth line item to be funded over a period of time. So we think we'll be able to do a good job of that. So we're looking for your support on that resolution.
Members of the committee?
Well, I just think it's, this is really minimal when you think of the need is great, and we have been down firefighters for a long time, and they're working a lot of hours, which means a lot of overtime, so we've got to really address this, and this is the first step. And I highly support it. Move to recommend the adoption of Resolution R-2023-27.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the public, members of the committee? Seeing none. All in favor? All opposed? Unanimous. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for your support.
All right. We'll reset here for,
Do we have to do this?
we do. Yeah, I think we do.
Just make a motion to go with it. I think we all know what it is.
You got it there.
Yeah. just for ease, should I move to recommend that the agenda item related to the FY 23-24 budget resolution R 2023-13 be placed on more time to allow further review and discussion of the budget beginning tonight? Second?
Second.
Been moved and tripled. Any discussion? All in favor? All right.
Process begun.
So we are here with our upcoming year budget, and we have a few guests to be with us this evening, but as a matter of formality, we're going to hear from each of the departments. Each of those are making requests. Happy to have you come up to the table, and if you're part of the discussion up here and you feel you have to get up and move along, come back in again, feel free. As long as we've got a quorum up here, we'll continue to move forward. And we'll kick it off with comments from the city manager, the author, and her crew is in the, almost everybody's in the back row there that have their fingerprints on this thing.
Well, they don't want to, yeah, they like to hang out back. So thank you. This evening is the start of the budget review, and we are going to review a few of the departments this evening, but we are also doing the introduction of the budget, which is the first section of the budget. And I will start with my introductory comments and then pass it over to our finance director, Mary Howe. And we're going to go back and forth several times this evening on different sections of the budget, and then move to some of the departments. So you've heard some of this at the council meeting, but for those in the audience that may not have heard my introduction of the budget last week, I start with giving some context to the last few years of the city's tax rate and what's been happening overall with the city's tax rate. And the city's overall tax rate dropped the last 2 years, and the year before that, the city's portion of the rate remained level. So that's good news. You know, that's 3 years we've had, you know, a pretty good municipal tax rate, and we've been able to maintain that. This year, between the increasing costs of projects and operational supplies, and after effect of COVID and strained supply chains, inflationary cost impacts, and the increasing need of staffing to keep up with department service demands, the city's portion of the rate is proposed to increase 3.4%. The budget is in compliance with your city policy limitations when you exclude the expenses associated with the 4 firefighters approved by the council last month. And we discussed that when the firefighters were added, that was just under $500,000, and that would put us over our fiscal policy limits. Given the cost of the living index used by the city, it was actually much higher. So this year, it was 6.4%. And our 3-year average used for the fiscal policy calculation was also higher at 4.4. So when putting that in context with our overall 3.4% increase in the municipal portion of the rate. In the context of current economic challenges, including inflationary cost impacts, the municipal team worked hard to structure a budget within our fiscal policy guidelines. The proposed budget includes an estimated 0.43 cents, so 43 cents change in the municipal rate, of which 23 cents is the impact of the expense for the 4 firefighters needed to maintain the minimum staffing level of 10, as we've discussed. So this will be the first year you're seeing it in the budget. In preparing this budget, some of the major challenges included a reduction in overall utility values, and I discussed this last week. As we've seen, residential properties are consistently selling for prices considerably higher than their assessments with no sign of change. Low inventory and high demand continue to be factors as houses on the market see multiple offers ending above asking price. Construction costs also remain high for any new housing, and we've heard this over and over again for all the city projects that we do, so it's more than just housing costs. The New Hampshire Department of Revenue set the assessment equalization ratio for the city this past year at 80.9%. This means that the median sale price in the city is 19.1% more than assessed value. So people are selling their houses about 19% higher than what we have them assessed for. By state law, annually, our utility values must be equalized by that ratio. While utility values are reviewed every year to account for changes in the value, and the value may increase from the previous year, the equalization ratio 80.9% will still need to be applied. When this is done, this could result in an overall loss in taxable value for utility property. And so, we look at not only what's happening to utility values, but also what's happening to our general assessments throughout the city, and whether or not we can offset that loss when we equalize those utility values. Unfortunately, the assessor tells me, no, we're not going to. And so I did include a reduction in the overall city's assessments and in the utility category of $6 million. So a $6 million drop in overall values. In the budget, utility costs are up across the organization. Electricity and heating expenses are almost $100,000 more than they were last year, and that is after all of the efforts that we've undertaken to do third-party contracts for bidding out our electricity, and then the work that we've done to go to solar, moving our wastewater treatment plant, the largest energy user in Cheshire County, to a solar farm at the airport, and our solar project that provides power at our Marlborough Street facilities. In the budget, there were personnel changes that were necessary in multiple departments across the organization, including changes made in anticipation of retirement. It's not a surprise. We look at the age of our employees in our departments, and we know when they are eligible to retire. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of those retirements at the upper level at some of our management positions, and we're losing a great deal of experience. So we've been trying to come up with plans to make sure that we are transitioning in a way that we're ready for the department when that individual retires. But the most costly personnel change was, of course, the addition of the 4 firefighters recently approved by the council. That's broken out for you on page 13 of this budget. In addition, operating expenses related to that are required to run various functions in all of our departments and our capital costs increased dramatically. This required many changes to funding sources of projects to reduce the impact of the costs. And we've heard from our Public Works Department, and Aaron Costa has talked to us in the past about just the cost of the supplies and how much those costs have increased just to run the plants 24 hours a day. And this year is a presidential primary, so we got that added bonus to the budget this year because there's always a lot more election expense in the clerk's office when that happens, and a great deal of effort is involved. This summer, we start the capital planning process at the administrative level, and it will work its way to the council in January. It will require a great deal of effort this year to update project costs in keeping with our strategic governance principles. And I've instructed the department heads to include not only updated estimates for the projects, but to also include anticipated impacts to operational expenses, including personnel impacts. Not something that really has been called out in the capital plan, at least not well, I think, in the past, because many of these decisions, when we're deciding, the council makes a decision to add a park or add another facility, there's going to be an increase in labor that's needed. There's going to be an additional position, and we see that in the budget this year with the addition of the Pat Russell Park. In regards to the department review, as we move through the budget process, I've spoken with Councilor Powers, and we are going to follow the same format as we have in the past and review changes in each budget and overview some of the upcoming challenges and opportunities as the departments review their budgets with you. That's it. Those are my introductory remarks.
Might be able to hear me a little bit better now, but good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Before I begin, I want to mention there's a version online of the budget on our Keene, City of Keene website at www.keenenh.gov/budget. So anybody at home that wants to take a look and follow along, they can access the budget online. So this is the first budget prepared using information in the new finance software. We're still kind of in the exploratory stages, and we don't know what's going to happen year after year after year until we settle into the new software, what you're going to see and how it's going to be presented. So over the course of the next couple of years, there may be some changes to what you see, what you get, as we adapt to the new software and as we kind of acclimate as to what the new budgeting process is going to be and what information is going to be available. So, and I also want to mention, small change or big change. We used to call our subdivisions within the departments cost centers. They are now called organizations or org codes instead of cost centers. So you might have people refer to things as orgs now instead of cost centers. That's what they are. Accounts are now object codes instead of account codes. So some things are a little bit different. A few of the orgs, we moved some things around. In the mayor's budget, we used to budget, let's say, for citywide benefits for employees. Those we felt were more of an overall function of human resources, so they're no longer in the mayor's budget. They got moved into human resources. So you'll see subtle changes like that. We were trying to align the expenses with the real org that they go to or department. So, okay. And actually now, before we begin, I really want to give a special thank you to Karen Gray, the accounting and fund manager. Without her, the hard work that she put in to help us get this book to look the way it is, it wouldn't be in the format that you have. So thank you, Karen. And also also a special thank you to Rob Constable, the Assistant Finance Director, because he has incredible Excel skills that we were able to tap into so we could get information out of the old legacy system and the new system. So thank you, Rob, for your Excel skills, because they were greatly appreciated and helped us get through this process. So, and as always, the rest of the finance team and HR, we all work together to come up with what you have before you this evening. So, alrighty. So now we are going to move on to pages 10 through 30. And what I'd really like to do is point out page 10. Page 10 is a breakout by department of the city's portion of the tax rate and what your money actually goes to and how much goes to each department. It's really informative, and it gives the taxpayer an idea as to where their dollars are going and that they're really truly well spent. So, in just a few minutes, the departments will be coming before you to present and discuss their operating budgets. Hopefully, they'll be able to go through everything, and like I said, the formatting is a little bit different. So you didn't have all the reports that you used to have in the past, but I think everything is here, and I think the departments will be able to present and explain things in a manner in which you're used to. So on pages, in the city manager touched on this, 11 through 15, we have our budget recaps that also calculate out the tax rate. The first one is the orange one, and that's on page 11, and that's the calculation of the budget and the tax rate that shows that the city is in compliance prior to the additional 4 firefighters. And then on page 13, we also have just a recap of what the changes are and the impact on the overall budget as well as the tax rate. And then finally, on pages 14 and 15, we have a summary of the actual budget and the tax rate. And then moving on to pages 16 through 19. This is our revenue, general fund revenue recap, where we have it in summary and then broken out by object codes on pages 17 through 19. And then as part of the budget process every year, each department prepares a list of their supplemental requests for changes or additions to their budgets. And pages 20 through 22, you'll find a list of the supplemental requests by department and the requests that were included in the city manager's budget. And as you can see, not all requests are put into the city manager's budgets. They're reviewed, they're talked about, and then they're assessed, and then they're put into the city manager's budget. And then moving on to pages 23 through 30, you'll find the general fund expenditure budget reports, one by department on page 23, and then one by object code on pages 24 through 28. And then a breakdown by department between personnel costs and operating costs. So any questions so far? Okay. So on pages 31 through 33, we have a list of the general fund long-term debt with issue date, maturity rate, original amount, principal, interest, and balance as of 6/30/24. New anticipated debt for FY '24 based on the CIP projects is $2,951,000. And it's hopefully scheduled to be issued in the fall of 2024. Would you like me to continue on with the mayor and council budget? Or are there any other questions? Okay. So the mayor's budget starts on page 38, and it's pretty much status quo. It is up slightly due to an increase in funding for the Human Rights Committee of $1,000. And then next, we have outside agencies, and those are on pages 39 through 42. And Human Resource Manager Natalie Darcy is going to come up and help present an overview of the budget and the process that was used for determining the agencies that are receiving funding.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Natalie Darcy, Human Services Manager. Okay, so historically, Human Services has been tasked with taking the lead on outside agency funding. This year, the committee consisted of individuals from Human Services, Purchasing, and members of the council, 2 members of the council. Sorry. The committee worked diligently to assure that any organization that wanted to apply for funding had the opportunity to do so. This year, a public notice was placed in the Keene Sentinel in mid-December, and the deadline for submittal was January 27th, 2023. Recommendations for funding are based on each agency's response under the following established criteria. 1, the impact on the city if the agency was not in operation. 2, the agency provides a service with a direct financial impact on expenditure of city departments. 3, the number and percentage of Keene residents served by the agency. 4, other local service agencies providing similar services. 5, financial impact in terms of prevention and intervention services that potentially saves future city spending. And 6, demonstrated efforts to cooperate and avoid duplication with other agencies. This year, Human Services received 15 requests for agency funding. One agency rescinded their request, the Samaritans, and one agency did not present before the committee, MFS Substance Abuse Services. The committee met with agencies in February 2023 via Zoom to discuss agency requests. The committee then met and made recommendations which were forwarded to the city manager for budget review. Thank you. And I believe there are some agencies here that might like to speak on this.
All right. Those agencies that want to speak to their proposal, feel free. Come on up.
You want to go? You're in the front row.
It's like going to school. So just a reminder, if you just give us your name and your, where you live and what agency you represent. Thanks for coming.
I'm Megan Fulton. I'm the Development Director at MCVP Crisis and Prevention Center, also a resident here in Keene.
Robin Christofferson, Executive Director of MCVP Crisis and Prevention Center. We're at 12 Court Street across Central Square. And I live in Sullivan.
And just a little background on our request. So we make the same request of all towns that we serve. So MCVP serves every town in Cheshire County and 14 towns, the 14 westernmost towns in Hillsborough County. We serve survivors of domestic and sexual violence, stalking, and human sex trafficking. We also, in addition to crisis prevention services, offer prevention education programs. We're in upwards of 30 schools in the area, including in some of the Keene schools. We'd love to be in more. And our request is based on the cost of our services to us. All of our services are free to anyone who comes into our door. All of our prevention education is free. So we make the same 10% request. The request itself is different from town to town based on the number of survivors we serve. And in Keene is our largest need, being the largest town in the area. So that's why you'll see that number. And that would go to both our crisis intervention services and our prevention education. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Keith Tebow. I work for Southwestern Community Services based here in Keene. I live in Swansea. And Southwestern Community Services serves the 2 counties in southwestern New Hampshire. We're a community action program that serves the 2 counties. We ask each community in the 2 counties to provide, and I'll explain the formula in a minute, to our what we call our town funding effort. It raises a little over $100,000 a year, and I'm pleased to say that every community in Cheshire and Sullivan counties does write us a check every year through this program. So we're not just tapping Keene. And we're doing it in a way, though, that the formula is that we calculate, and this was provided in your packet, a copy of this document right here, which is we calculate for every community that we serve how much direct assistance goes into that community. And Keene obviously is the largest community that we serve in dollars, and in last year we provided over $7.3 million just to Keene residents. We generally ask our communities to give back 1% of the money direct assistance that we give them, which in Keene's case would be $73,000, but we cap that off at $10,000. Now there are Claremont, Newport, Winchester, Swansea, and Keene all hit that $1 million level, which caps out at that $10,000. So we get donations as low as in the $200 or $300 range from places like, Gilsum and Roxbury, and Nelson and other places like that, but as I said, we're really pleased that every community recognizes the value that we bring to the community and are willing to provide that, a little bit of money back. Most of our funding is directly related to a program. Head Start funding can only pay for Head Start activities. So our fuel assistance program can only pay for fuel assistance activities. So having a little bit of expendable money that can be expended in other ways that don't have as many restrictions on it are really vital, because we get calls from our communities, weekly. Unusual problems that come up that the community doesn't have any money to pay for. A couple years ago, we were able in almost no time at all, be able to replace a red-tagged furnace on a mobile home in Winchester because they got a call and they weren't sure what was going to happen. This gentleman was really in the dire straits, and I have tons of other examples of that. But for the city of Keene, just some highlights from last year. Our fuel assistance program alone provided $852,000 to Keene residents. Our housing stabilization services provided over $4 million, and that was augmented in the last year by a very, very robust New Hampshire rental assistance program that provided over $3.5 million to Keene residents directly. That's part of that $4 million that I just said. So this is available to you. We are asking for $10,000, which has been our perennial request every year under this program. We're really pleased with the various partnerships and collaborations and all kinds of efforts. Andy just got me tonight on the Robin Hood Park committee, which I'm very, very, very pleased to do. But there is a give and take to all of this, and we are really pleased with the give and take that we're able to do with the city and what we're able to accomplish because of it, and what we're able to provide the citizens of this community with who tend to struggle with basic costs. So we're really pleased to be part of that collaborative efforts that we go on a daily basis. So I'll take any questions, but I'll let some others talk too.
Mr. Good.
Thank you for your past support.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Good evening. I'm Mary Jensen from the Keene Senior Center, and I myself live in Chesterfield. I just want to thank you for your support of the Senior Center in the past. I wanted to let you know that last year we saw about a 48% increase in visits from seniors who are feeling more comfortable about coming out after COVID. That translates to almost 18,000 visits by our membership. And in our membership, 67% of the people who are members of the Senior Center are residents of Keene. And they tell me many of the people who come in the last year are people who've moved here from other areas to move in with their children or other family members, and they're surprised at the lack of state support for seniors in New Hampshire. And so they are particularly appreciative of all of the support that the city gives to the Senior Center, because that makes the difference for us between being able to continue to provide inexpensive services to seniors. We know that our seniors, about 60% of them earn or have an income of $50,000 or less, so we do try to keep our membership costs low so that we can service all of the members of the community. We do a great deal of fundraising and grant writing to make up the difference between our memberships, what the city supplies, and other special events that we do. And we try very hard to collaborate with other organizations in the area. I see many people in the audience that I'm familiar with from the Community Kitchen, Home Health Care, Hospice and Community Services, CVTC, and so there's all of these organizations work together to try and provide resources for seniors. And again, I appreciate your support for the Senior Center so that we can continue to provide services and a safe and attractive place for our seniors to go when they're looking for to have less social isolation, yes, isolation, and for them to be able to participate in wellness programs. And I'd take any questions that you have.
Thank you. Questions? Good. Good job.
Thank you for your support.
like same time next year, you know. Faces, people that I work with all the time is, that was a nice mirror, very nice. My name is Ellen Avery, and I am the Executive Director for Community Volunteer Transportation Company. We're based in Peterborough. We serve 34 towns that make up the Monadnock region, all 23 in Cheshire County and 11 in Hillsborough County. We've been in business since 2008, so we're in our 15th year, and we are busy. Our numbers are increasing, and people are definitely reemerging from, you know, the effects of the pandemic in keeping people at home. I was here last year and was not successful, and I had a great conversation with Elizabeth, the city manager, afterwards, because I just needed to hear what were some of the concerns. I was also asking for $1,500, and I heard that some people winced at that, and that there was a concern about duplication of effort. As you know, we are part of the transportation network in the region. We do it with volunteers. They donate their time, and then we reimburse them for their miles. So it's a very nimble organization. We're slated for, at the end of this fiscal year for us will be in June, and we're slated to log in over 120,000 miles with, right now we have 67 volunteer drivers. We're aiming for 75. So I just want to talk about the duplication of effort because it can be confusing. You know, Keene is blessed with a public transportation option, which is the City Express that comes, you'll hear from Susan later, from HCS. They also have the Friendly Bus for people that are over the age of 60. And I wish we could multiply their effort because their numbers are just as astounding as ours are. But what we do, so what CVTC does is we primarily take Keene residents to outside of the Keene city, you know, the Keene footprint. And in our application, I share with you that we had 92 ride requests from 36 residents. 41 of those requests went up to White River Junction or Dartmouth Hitchcock. And that's like 44% of the requests were specifically going up north. I wanted to see how much a taxi cost, so I made a phone call to Tony's Taxi, and for their effort to take people up to Lebanon, it's $300 plus $50 an hour for a wait time. So you can see that in ours there's no fee for an individual to ride with us. We do take donations, but there is no fee. And so if you value out the volunteer time at $18 an hour and the mileage reimbursement, we're talking instead of $14,000 for the 41 people that went up to Lebanon, we're talking about $6,068 using CVTCs. So you can see there's a big difference, and it also they're keeping them out of welfare, looking for money to take the cab up north. So I feel like we are supplementing and enhancing what HCS already does. The Keene Senior Center also has a volunteer driver program, and it's for their members. We serve 34 towns. And I'm fortunate today to be joined by Dave Whaley. He's a resident of Keene, but he has an interesting story and an interesting relationship with Keene. And I've invited him to just give his perspective.
Sure. So I'm Dave Whaley. I do live in Keene. Been here maybe 12 years, something like that. I got associated with CVTC about 18 months ago. I wanted to become a volunteer driver. My friend John McLean said, you really need to consider joining the board. So I did. So it's a unique experience. I'm the only board member who does volunteer driving. I do maybe 35, I did about 35 drives last year. Try for about 3 a month. They're great because it really gives me a great view of profile of what kind of the average person who needs and uses CVTC. Mostly all seniors. As Ellen said, we do 34 communities. We serve 34 origins. But I've taken people to Lebanon, Concord, Manchester, Nashua, Brattleboro, and Peterborough, I mean, just locally. But what I saw, and I have said this over and over again, is what a valuable service this strikes me as. These people really need it, and it's obvious. They're in failed health, a lot of them. They don't have a car. They're financially challenged, a lot of them. They don't have alternatives. Their children are their adult children work or they live somewhere else. But during every ride, it's a great opportunity to see these people, meet them, hear their stories, but also to do, I feel like I'm doing something good. And as Ellen said, we have a number of people that are volunteer driving. We're continuing to strengthen our driver ranks and working through many media sources to attract more riders. The need is there. It's a real powerful need. So all I can say is that it's a great service, and we'll appreciate any support you can provide us.
Yeah, and so right now we're being supported by 28 of the 34 towns, and I think we're going to add some new ones. So we'd certainly enjoy adding the city of Keene, because as I explained in the, the $750 is it's 0.002% of our budget. However, it's all the municipalities that come in at about 14% of or 9% of the budget, and that's what helps us do what we do and serve the people that we serve. So we hope you look upon our request favorably and join the ranks.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, so are the drivers and their mileage are volunteer? So a person's a volunteer driver and volunteer mileage?
No, the mileage is reimbursed.
Mileage is reimbursed.
Yeah,
I was just trying to understand where the money went to if the driver time was volunteered.
So drivers select the rides based on their availability, so we don't dispatch. And that's I think, part of a winning formula for people to volunteer, because they're in control of how much time they devote. We set a voluntary threshold of signing up for 4 rides a month. And we've got I'd say about 68% of our drivers that drive each month do sign up for the 4. So our volunteers are not employed. They get mileage reimbursement. Currently, we're at the IRS rate of 65.5 cents a mile. And, when you're going up to Lebanon, that's nice, and we offer mileage reimbursement checks once a month. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess if you're saying that the 750 is 0.02%, I'm just trying to understand where the funding, because we don't have the full packets here. We just have the one line item.
Well, that's too bad.
So that's I was trying to understand where the dollars went from that, what they went to, if the driver time was volunteer.
Well, it's part of our readiness to serve. I mean, the municipal contributions they're not designated toward any specific aspect. It just goes into supporting, keeping the lights on, our essential services that we we do.
Staff, software,
Yeah.
office equipment.
Yeah, our budget right now, I think it's about 250, 258.
It's tight. It's
Yeah.
lean.
And the reimbursement, the mileage reimbursement funds come from the feds through New Hampshire DOT.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just did some quick math, and a round trip from Keene to Lebanon would cost about $84.50 in mileage reimbursement, but I didn't realize that came from DOT.
Yeah, I had $85, so.
Close enough.
We're looking good.
Yeah.
All set up here? Thanks very much.
We appreciate your consideration.
Nice to
Thank
see
you. Bye, everybody.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Harpster, Executive Director of the Community Kitchen, and I live in Keene.
I'm Jocelyn Damaris. I am the Director of Advocacy and Development with the Community Kitchen, and I live in Keene.
So we just wanted to thank the city for your continued partnership, and we noticed that we're a big part of the budget under the outside agencies, and appreciate that the city has been a partner for so many years. We're actually celebrating our 40th year now in 2023, and the need continues to be strong. I just wanted to share some highlights of the year and some insights about what's going on. 2022 was a year of great transitions at the Community Kitchen, of course, leadership as well as other staffing transitions, finishing our latest building upgrades, which included solar array installation. We had the reopening of one of our pantry days. We continue to have one pantry day option where people can get food delivered to their vehicles, and some of our guests appreciate one model and others appreciate the other. And so looking forward to 2023, we're working hard to get to the point that we reopen our dinners in the dining room this year. Our dinners in the dining room are a challenge. We'll have to actually increase our staffing just a little bit more to be able to cover those evening services, increase our volunteer base to get that done. And we're seeing anywhere between double and more the number of folks coming to our dinners as we were seeing prior to the pandemic. So just trying to figure that out and organize it. We're actually working in collaboration with 100 Nights, and when they open their new shelter space, we'll be able to prepare dinners that part of which they'd serve down there at 100 Nights. But we did see in 2022 about a 22% increase in our hot meal service over 2021, and those folks continue, the numbers there continue. We've seen, I haven't run the actual percentages again, but we've seen nights that we'd never seen before, 165 participants, 179, 192. So we're really seeing, and on average, over 140 folks every night, which it used to be, in my recollection, in the range of 60 and 70 a night. So there's a big increase there, but there's also a big increase in our pantry just recently. So as many know, the declaration of, or the sunsetting of the pandemic has impacted a lot of social services. In one case, there was the boost of SNAP that was happening during the pandemic, and New Hampshire Hunger Solutions estimates that every New Hampshire family that was participating in the SNAP program lost about $206 a month of their SNAP benefits. And that would mean for our guests that were enrolled in SNAP, there were 283 of those families prior to this occasion of sunsetting those extra benefits in February. That's $58,000 of grocery buying power a month that our guests lost. So But of course, there are a number of folks who were using those and being able to supplement their nutritional needs and not needing to come to the community kitchen. We anticipated that there would be an increase, but just if we're looking at March and April, we've seen a 32% increase in pantry usage compared to February and January, and it's about a 31% increase over the prior year during those couple of months. So we really are noticing, and we're scrambling to meet that need. We have very resourceful people on our staff, but as you know, inflation has impacted everything that we do. Food inflation since 2019, you can talk about the most recent food inflation. It's higher than the regular inflation levels. But since 2019, it's actually another thing that's a little bit over 30%. So folks are really struggling, and as are we, to get those food supplies and keep up with the demand that we're seeing. So far, we're doing pretty well, and we're grateful to have great support across the citizens of our region as well, to appeal to them when these kinds of things are happening in our budgets. But we know we've made a very big request, which was level to the increase of our own budget, comparing 2022 to 2023. So we just appreciate your consideration of that and the continued partnership. You're really meeting a need and helping us with tough and challenging times, that we're being as creative as we can be with those dollars. And I can also give Jocelyn an opportunity to talk about our efforts to reduce the need as well, because we know that when we're putting, my predecessor, Executive Director Phoebe Bray, used to say we'd take a Band-Aid off every week of people facing food insecurity and we put a fresh one on. But what do we do to really change the level of need? So we are working on that piece as well.
Right. What I would say is that your support this year will help us keep our baseline so that we can begin to look into the future, so that we're looking at medium and long-term goals that address the root causes. And one of the things that we're working towards is an advocacy program that engages people with lived experience of food insecurity to develop their advocacy skills, so that we can train them about the food system and help them become participants in building a local, equitable, and sustainable food system that engages our local economy. So in the long run, these folks will become assets to all of us in our local economy. So your support now will help us be able to jump off a jumping off point to be able to begin to look at those things, so that we're not just addressing emergency food needs, but also long-term solutions.
So we'd love to take any questions you have.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
How many towns do you serve? Like, even though, Keene is the hub for Cheshire County, and how many of your guests are Keene residents out of that 140 per night that you mentioned?
So we estimate that really about 99% of the hot meals participants are residing in Keene, coming from Keene. It's very rare for people to come in on a nightly basis for one meal, but we don't collect the data on their community of origin. For our pantry program, we are serving Cheshire County broadly, and we are building stronger and stronger collaborations with other pantries and organizations across the region. We are also, as you know, piloting mobile food pantry program, which is meant to fill any gaps. But we still, over half of our pantry participants that we serve are still Keene residents, and that is data that we collect on the pantry.
So just to make sure I understood, you were saying that you believe 99% of the hot meals are, but there's no way that to keep track of it. It's just an open door. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you approach the other. Again, we don't get
Oh,
the
yes.
applications.
We do. We do proportionally. We actually, this is kind of an exercise that means kind of recalculating what it costs us per meal and we calculate out for the pantry how many meals we're serving to each resident based on them checking into the pantry. And based on that, we make our requests to each of the municipalities. But that number was too high for Keene, and so we asked for a number that was much smaller in the case of Keene.
So what is the number for the other towns?
So we asked for $1.50 per meal.
But do you know like what that equated to for contributions from other communities?
I have right here some of them off of our application. Do you want me to read off a few of them?
Yeah, I mean, or just the total amount that you're getting from other communities.
Yes, $434,286.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, I used to volunteer like once a week for years as a server, and there were several families from out of town. There was one family, it was a husband and wife and their kids from Winchester, and they came every single night to eat. And there was a man who was a retired teacher from Winchester that came pretty frequently too. So I just, so when you put this together and you're requesting this money from the city, you're basing it on how many you believe, but there's no way to track it at night,
Right.
the hot meals? Yeah.
I've taken that from the basically the traditional request and kind of modifying based on what my predecessor used to put in there. I should also emphasize that only 7% of the meals go out through the hot meals program. So that piece where we don't have the residency recorded is only accounting for 7% of the meals.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And residency is recorded for 93% of the meals. Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Chair and committee members and members of the public. My name is Sally Millay. I'm the Executive Director of the Keene Housing Kids Collaborative and a resident of Keene. I'm here tonight to thank the city for their support and just to reflect on the work that's taken place last year for the Kids Collaborative as we continue to expand our services, expand the number of families that we are serving, along with engaging more children in participating in youth activities. So the premise of the Kids Collaborative is our mission is to build a foundation for successful adulthood. And we are based on proven research that shows that 60 to 70% of children that are born into low-income households stay there through adulthood. And the research that we are based on is the social genome model that shows that the earlier you intervene into providing opportunities and experiences for children in their life, the better chance they will have to increase their social upward mobility. The programs that we partner with provide different, we partner with 40 different community partners. Majority of them are in Keene. And we have a diverse range. We hope that that provides different opportunities for different needs of families and children, from the arts, athletics, academics. And our goal is to provide access for these families. It's no cost to any of the children of the programs that they participate in. It's estimated that children from more affluent households, or the household in general, spends up to $9,000 a year on those kind of opportunities for those children. And we're servicing families that do not have the means to provide that for their children. So we want to close the gap, the opportunity gap that is created from that lack of access and opportunity. Last year, we served 155 children in Keene, Keene residents, and then this year, from January to April of the 4 months of this year, we've already served over 200 children just in this 4 months. So our expenses continue to go up, but we are grateful for the collaboration of the city, and we feel that it is an investment into the community. It's an investment into our future workforce. We are hoping that the children that we serve will choose to stay in Keene, and that we will help build their skill set so that they will be successful, engaged contributors to our community.
Thank you. Questions, Steve? None? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Susan Ashworth. I'm with Home Health Care, Hospice, and Community Services, and I live in Westmoreland. And I would like to thank the council and the community for their support of two programs that we offer through HCS. One is the City Express public transportation that provides 2 routes and Para Express services here in the city of Keene. We also provide the Friendly Bus door-to-door service for elders and those with disabilities, and weekly service to White River Junction and Lebanon. We are seeking funding simply for the City Express, though, from the city because it serves just the city. The ridership is increasing on our public transportation route. This year, we anticipate we'll provide 28,000 trips to residents of the city of Keene. They are all walks of life, and they're getting to essential services such as groceries, medical appointments, recreation opportunities, employment. 20% of our trips are to medical appointments, and about half of our trips now are for people needing to get groceries. We work with many of the agencies that you've heard from tonight, including City Human Services, Monadnock Family Services, 100 Nights, the Department of Employment Security, and Southwestern Community Services. We provide either free or discount tickets to make it possible for their clientele to access needed services. This year, we continued to work with Southwest Regional Planning, and we actually evaluated the City Express routes and found that the routes that we were doing were appropriate to reach most areas of the city where there were riders. And we're coordinating with the Monadnock Region Coordinating Council for Community Transportation so that we reduce or eliminate the duplication that might exist with providers in the area. The funds that we're seeking from the city of Keene are the 50% match funds that we need in order to operate the system. The balance of the funding is coming from fares and from the Department of Transportation. This will assist us in offsetting the fluctuations in our fuel costs, which have been rising, as I'm sure you all know. And the last 2 years, we have had certainly an increase in our maintenance costs as we travel 100 miles, 100 bumpy miles through the city each and every day with the City Express. The funding is crucial, though, in order to ensure the mobility for all residents, and we appreciate the investment that you have made in public transportation. I'd be happy to answer any questions or go on to the Meals on Wheels program that is also operated through HCS.
Questions? Yes.
In terms of the other organization that came before us regarding transportation, how much overlap, and do you call them when perhaps you can't meet the need, or do they call you? Do you work together at all?
Yes, we do. There's a formal mechanism through the Monadnock Region Coordinating Council for Community Transportation, affectionately known as MRCC. We also have their dispatchers call our dispatchers. We are going, for instance, to White River Junction and Lebanon on Wednesdays. If there's a person with a specialty appointment on any other day, CVTC and their volunteers would be tasked to provide that. But we have certainly made a concerted effort not to duplicate our efforts. The resources are too scarce for us to have that luxury.
Thank you.
Meals on Wheels, as you all know, I'm sure, provide daily nutrition to the city's homebound elderly citizens. Last year in Keene alone, we provided 48,578 meals. That's nearly 200 meals a day to residents. Nearly half of those residents were over the age of 80 and 10% were over the age of 90. We even had someone who was over the age of 100 able to stay at home with the services of HCS and Meals on Wheels. The residents need to be essentially homebound to be eligible for the service. And most of those residents say that thanks to this program and the daily safety check it provides, they're able to stay in their own home and continue to be residents of the city. We have had, during COVID, an expansion of the eligibility process. This year, we're tightening up because of the COVID eligibility going away. And so we have worked very hard to make sure that we are providing meals only to those who are homebound and need this service to stay in their home. However, we are working with people and other resources to make sure that people get the nutrition that they need. This population, as I'm sure you're aware, is growing in the city. About 28% of those in the city over the age of 65 have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or a related dementia. 57% of those over the age of 65 have 4 or more chronic health conditions. This is the population that we're trying to support with good nutrition and Meals on Wheels and the daily safety check. So our request is 36 cents per meal to be able to help us to offset a 9% increase in the costs of food that we have experienced in this past year, and to help our residents be at home, which is where they want to be. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your support.
Anybody else there? Okay. You want to take a break, or you want to move on?
I just need to step away if we're going to do the next one.
Yeah. All right.
Community-funded events, yeah. Page 43, and there's a really great chart at the bottom, or towards the bottom of that page, which breaks down the cost of city services for these community events and what is being provided in this budget versus what the organization is paying. We've kept the cap of $10,000, which in most cases has covered the majority of the costs. There are a few that exceeds that, but this budget is only showing a slight increase in the overall cost of community-funded events. It's increasing by $1,639. And I will mention the DeMar has, they put a self-cap on themselves, and they've maintained that self-cap of $5,000.
Okay, some of these agencies are with us. Boy, that's a familiar. What? Wait a minute.
Wow. I'm humbled by what I just saw tonight. What a great city we live in. I'm Mark Rebillard. I'm chair of the Keene Downtown Group. I do the Ice and Snow Festival. February 6th this year in 2024. Last year was the 20th anniversary. We had 12 ice carvers compete in what has become, I think, the premier ice carving competition for our state. with 2 blocks, 600 pounds of ice per participant, making sculptures that went 7 feet high. And we illuminate them from underneath into the night. It's a free, fun day for families is the way we do it. We gave away, there were 2 fire pits downtown where there were 800 s'mores consumed that day by children. I think we went through 5 gallons of maple syrup for the sugar on snow. There are all kinds of activities, over 60 local businesses participating. Everything from making donations to hosting an event to hiding a Yeti, a little stuffed Yeti for a scavenger hunt that goes on all up and down town. This year, it was, it can be a range of 60 degrees for this event. And this last year, while it was too bitterly cold for the Saturday that we had it planned, we shifted gears and the town rallied to pull this together. And we made it from Saturday to Sunday, and it came together unbelievably. I mean, unfortunately, some businesses just weren't open on Sunday. But for the businesses that were, triple their normal Saturday was the minimum for what they would do. This event occurs in the darkest hour of winter. It's after the holidays. Retail's kind of come and gone, and it's time to give a little boost to our local economy. And that's exactly what this does, while at the same time making sure that all the events are free, like the train ride and the circus acts and all the other things that happen for this. So I thank you very much for your support, and I won't take any more of your time, but I got to thank you and you guys for I'm just honored and humbled to be here tonight. Thank you.
Questions? Thanks, Mark. Mrs. Sayer? No? Why are you sitting in the back of the room?
They're my friends. Good evening, Councilor Powers and members of the committee and city staff. I'm Elizabeth Sayer. I live at 290 Main Street in Keene. And I'm very happy to say I'm on this item and not the previous item. But I'm here representing the Kiwanis Club of Keene. And I want to thank you for your support of our tree lighting event every year. The fire truck's delivery of Santa the last 3 years has gone over the top as being the most successful part of the event. But we really appreciate the City of Keene's cooperation with Public Works, Police, Fire, and city staff helping us put that event on. And we're going to be doing it again this year. Last year, we had our largest event ever, and I think probably because of COVID, one year we did it via Zoom, which was necessary, but didn't quite feel like Christmas. So we're going to do it again this year. And we've made an additional request as part of our packet. We actually, believe it or not, had a number of requests for bathrooms last year. So we've asked if a porta potty could be provided. I don't know anyone who would want to use one, but if that was the only request. And then we asked for some parking spaces during our setup and takedown. But we plan to have it continue, have the high school band and choirs from Keene perform and some community bands. We have service clubs from Keene High School, Monadnock High School, and St. Joseph School providing refreshments to everybody who participates. And I just want to say thank you for your support of the event. And if anybody has questions, and if you don't, that's fine too.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you around Christmas time. Thank
Or
you.
before. Thank you.
Rotate chairs. Good evening, I'm Pablo Fleischman. I own property on Roxbury Street, but I live in Marlow, and I am the chair of the Keene Music Fest Committee. We've been running the committee running the event since 2001, thanks to the help of the city. It's an all-volunteer event. We try to pay the people that really work. We pay the porta potties and the tents and things of that sort. And most all of that money is raised locally through businesses and cash donations. And we thank the city for the support, and we try to say that we not just bring a great event for the day, we bring good weather.
Okay, thanks. Questions? Good, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you next year.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Alan Stroshine. I live at 27 Salisbury Road, and I'm a very proud member of the Keene Elm City Rotary Club and also the race director for the Clarence DeMar Marathon. And I've been coming before you since 2012 when the Rotary Club took over the longstanding DeMar Marathon, which was started back in 1978. And Elizabeth made a term tonight that I had never heard before, and that is self-capped. I had never heard that. And I like the chart that was in the budget booklet, because I started reflecting back on when we first applied for community event status and got it back in 2012. There was a line item provided for us to help us with that, and our city costs were more than that, but marginally. And as I look at what cost last year, it's been a pretty flat, not a pretty flat, it's been a flat line item of $5,000 for our event since 2012. And it cost us over $14,000 last year for city services. And every nickel of that was needed and earned, and we're happy to pay for it. Probably my partnership with the city is one of the ones I'm most proud of because of what they do for this event, as well as the college and the hospital and a long list of other partners that make this happen. So I don't recall ever making a self-cap, but I'd never heard that. So maybe just a seed planted for future budgets. But we are well underway for planning for the 2023 DeMar Marathon and Half Marathon, which will also include our Kids DeMar Marathon, which we are making considerable effort to bring back to pre-COVID levels. It was embarrassing last year what happened, and between COVID and some other leadership changes within our own organization, we had an extremely small showing of kids. We're used to 800 and 900 kids on race day coming screaming down Appian Way and then gathering in the quad with their parents before the first runners start finishing their full or half marathon. And last year we had about 100. And so we have started meeting with school boards and individual schools across Keene as well as Cheshire County, and hope to return to our prior glory of 11 or 1,200 kids registered and 800 to 900 showing up on race day. And super seniors will happen again also. We're right around 100 usually there. And if you haven't been down to Appian Way or the quad at Keene State on race day, you're missing out, because the energy there is about as positive and uplifting as you'll ever see. One of my favorite quotes is that if you ever lose faith in humanity, go out and watch a marathon. It's a pretty nice place to be. So with that, I would entertain any comments or questions.
Questions?
My comment is, so Alan, you get what you asked for, and so it is something to keep in mind for next year.
Yeah, Elizabeth, we are grateful for the support. It's not like without the support we wouldn't do this, but it's meaningful in that it's an investment in our event and what it means to this community. But again, the costs are going up. So, thank you.
There's no question it's a worthwhile event, and it's an opportunity for so many people to get involved in just a small way and enjoy it. So, yes.
I was just going to say, it's such a great event because you always give back to, you choose a nonprofit each year to give to, correct?
Well, yeah, 100% of the proceeds go to fund a long list of things the Rotary Club does locally, from scholarships to kids' wellness programs. We just finished a 3-week project of delivering brand-new sneakers to every single second grader in Cheshire County as part of a wellness program. So, and then we have grant applications that we fund nonprofits throughout the area. It is our budget, it's our signature fundraiser, and every nickel that we earn goes to those projects. We are a 100% volunteer operation. We only pay our vendors for food and tents and city services and things like that. So it's a big event. It brings a lot of energy to the community. We bring in people from anywhere from 40 to 45 states across the country, as well as 3 or 4 countries in the world to our humble little neck of the woods, and we're happy to do it.
Well, I still have my volunteer shirt if you want to call on me again this year.
Count on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll say hello, Councillor Remy at large. I'm here actually with 2 different organizations. So Let It Shine, coming up in the fall, we have the Pumpkin Festival. It'll be back in a larger form than it was last year, where we just did the Gathering of the Gourds, assuming all approvals go through. But the idea would be to go back to closing the streets and doing a larger event. For anyone who attended last year, we were probably at the limit of how many people you can hold on the sidewalks before it became a problem. So closing the roads comes back to being a good idea for that event for safety reasons. So any questions on the Pumpkin Fest? Yes. For the other event, we are coming up very quickly on the Taste of Keene Food Festival. June 3rd is 3 weeks. So that's the one for this year. This is actually applying for the event for the following year. So that is us saying that we're planning to do this again. So thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
So, the 4th on the 4th. 4 on the 4th road race is also one of the items in our budget here. And former City Councilor Jan Manwaring couldn't be here, and she just sent me a note, and we'll appreciate the support we're willing to give this particular project, which is another organization that has raised an awful lot of money for the good of the community. With that, I think we've made it through that page.
Yep.
I think we need a break.
Take
About 5 minutes. We've certainly messed up the TV lady, so.
For the city clerk's office, there are no funds allocated this year. Just kidding. Back to the budget. We're on to capital, the capital expenditures, and it actually, the best page is 48 and 49. Those two pages I think are easiest to follow. It's not going to be easy to explain, though, because typically we have a handful of changes in the capital plan, but as I've talked about a number of times, the cost of almost everything went up. So this page has been almost completely revision, probably half of it. And so we've had to adjust projects with more updated numbers. We've had to move things around to make the bottom line work. And I've had to change some funding sources, including additional use of fund balance to bring the bottom line where it needed to be. We also had the perimeter fence project for the airport, which wasn't anticipated in this fiscal year, has been moved up in the grant cycle. So you have the grant in there offsetting the expenditure as well. So I do have them highlighted, and I've written next to them how much they've changed, if you'd like me to go through the lines on the 2 pages that have changed. It's up to you. You're good? So, all right. But I think the major change, and I know, okay, go for it.
On between 46 and 47 is where
okay.
I looked at it, but I think it's repeated on this. So under capital reserve appropriations, you have emergency communications capital reserve of $60,000.
Yep.
And then on the next page, under the police department, there's mobile radio replacement of 58.7.
Yep.
What are our differences?
Not a lot. It's so in some cases we are putting in and taking back out, or not able to build much of a balance, but we've established this account so that we can do some advanced planning. Hopefully we get ahead at some point where we're not always needing to pull from the capital reserve as we're putting money in. So it is using that same account, right?
Understood.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was, but I want to make sure with the changes.
Yeah, and another, and I mentioned this last week at the council meeting, another large change in this capital plan is the Thompson Road bridge, the Thompson Road project. And so that was something that was not in there. That's on page 49. It's under debt for Thompson Road stabilization. It's just over $1 million, and so that was new.
Anything else for that section? Okay.
Okay. Moving right on to the city manager's budget on page 51. It starts. But the page that you're probably interested in is pages 55 and 56. And there are, so this is one of the budgets that we've sort of changed where things are showing. If you remember number of years ago now, actually, when Med moved to the economic development position, that is now under this cost center, or what do you call it, org. And we've always had the emergency operations function under this org. We now have communications and marketing, and so that is Rebecca Landry's position. That was moved. It was moved last year, but this year in the budget, we've been able to align it correctly in the budget document. One of the great things about our new software, and I know some people in the audience are going to be saying there's a great thing, because it's been challenging. But one of the great things about the new software is that we were able to also transfer expenses. So in the past, you would see 0 in the previous year because we moved something, but now we were actually able to take it. So we took the expenses that were showing in IT when Rebecca was the IT director and moved those to communications and marketing so that it's much easier now to compare apples to apples. And when you see the IT budget, you'll notice that has been changed because her position has been moved out. So there are no additional supplemental requests in the budget, but we do have, I know Rebecca's here if there are any questions related to our branding project and our plans for the upcoming year. And I'm also happy to answer any questions that you have. I guess before we open it up to Rebecca, I did want to mention one other thing, and something that I have really struggled with, and that is a way to engage the public more in the prioritization of, let's say, things you include in a project. It could be when you're making hard decisions about what has to be cut out of a project, or you're designing, let's say, Robin Hood Park, for example, and you're trying to decide what are the things that the community wants most, what do they value most. Honestly, it's difficult for the public to come here at night to tell you what that might be, and so we don't always get a large percentage of people giving you input on some of these projects. And so sometimes it can appear that a handful of people is the majority, and that because they took the time to come out and they're passionate one way or another, positive or negatively, about what's happening, that is in fact the majority. So that's a challenge to figure out how to overcome so that the council is getting a good representation of the public and engaging them in different ways. So I have been looking at tools to do that. I've looked at one called Zen City, looked at one called Qualtrics, and we've been looking at these tools as ways to we could use it in a variety of ways to look at projects, but also to gauge experience surveys. So if someone interacts with the 4th floor or the police department, have a way to sort of engage their satisfaction. And so we're looking at tools to be able to do some of these things. Now, some are more expensive than others, and so obviously we have to prioritize. But in the upcoming year, and as you look to update your council goals, that is something I'm hoping to have more information about and be able to maybe implement as a pilot over the next year to see how successful we are. And there's some pretty creative ways of doing it now.
Can I just add some information? As Rebecca Landry, Communications and Marketing Director, I wouldn't want to have my 26th budget and not say anything. So I have to say something. And I'm also really excited about communications and marketing for the city. We have done so much in the last year. Particularly in the last 6 to 8 months, not just me, but a dozen people who work on communications in public works and HR, you name it, police and fire. There have been over 73,000 emails sent. 33,972 of those emails have been opened. Almost half the people who receive our emails are opening those emails. The industry average is 15%. So we have a pretty good success rate, and we're doing, there are people who respond better to email. There are people who are on social media at certain times of the day. We're learning how to know those behaviors and use those so that people can better consume the information that we have. And then there are people who read the newspaper, and there are people who look at advertisements in magazines. And so we have a better ability now to understand all of that intelligence. The products that Elizabeth is talking about will really significantly help us to get a pulse of our community, to know how we talked about coming to meetings. Even if we change the hour of meetings, there are people who still won't come. And so we need to know, what do they care about? You know, how, when we are saying we're going to spend your tax dollars, what are their priorities? What would they prioritize when it comes to what features go into a park or into a downtown project or on a roundabout or Winchester Street? So we're getting closer to really better understanding that from a community-wide perspective. I will also say that with social media, I'm sure it won't surprise anyone to know that the downtown project got an awful lot of attention in social media. But the top 2 posts in terms of reach were the Rescue Inc. ambulance transition from Deluzio with over 41,000, actually it was over 51,000 reach, and that was in a very short period of time. And the second to that was helping people get in from the cold and the cold snap that we had. So as much as people care about the really sometimes politically sensitive programs and projects that we have going on, I'm encouraged to know that our community really cares about the services that matter to everybody. So these are things we just didn't know before. I'm really excited about doing more from year to year. We will have a final and official communications plan by the end of this fiscal year. We're still working with Guide Studio, who helped us with our brand development. That project is rolling out slowly. They're kind of giving it a slow roll, and which has helped really, given that it's our first brand. And we'll also have marketing strategy officially documented very shortly. We've had a number of major events in the last year, and sometimes when it rains it pours, both good and bad. We've had a plane crash, we've had a death at a city facility, we've had we now have this awesome community power project. We have significant road construction projects. We had extreme cold weather. We had extreme hot weather. We had the ability to partner with other organizations to provide ways that people could get out of the heat. Those are things that would have been difficult to pull together before. Relief funding for businesses and residents, whether it was COVID or something else, these things we've been able to better manage by getting information to the people who need it and care about it. So just in the last 30 days, our social media reach was 52,000. And that, even though I would say probably half of the population, 50 to 60%, uses it, which means we have another 40 to 50% to reach, it has been very effective. Our email list is over 2,100 and growing, and we do have a very good open rate on those emails. So you can read on page 52 the bullets that basically describe what my goals are for the coming year. I want to thank the departments all have somebody who works on communications. One of the ways that I look forward to making some improvements in the coming year, and this is already happening, is with recruitment. We've had significant response by boosting some of our social media posts. So for $25, we can boost, hey, the city has a bunch of jobs open, and we can reach 5,000 more people than we would have otherwise. And we're definitely seeing some of the results of that. So if you have any questions, I think that there's a good summary on page 52 about what we do in communications and marketing. And I'm all ears if you have suggestions or questions. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Asa Kramer is amazing. We hired her to be our AV production specialist, and she has expanded her horizons to do so much to help us with our communications and marketing, and she's very creative and talented, and we're lucky to have her.
Remember, it's dark out.
I'll be quick. Tom Mullen, City Attorney. Thank you very much. As you know, my budget is one of those that don't blink, you'll miss it. It's, along with the city managers, it's probably one of the smallest in the city, but I think you get a big bang for your buck, hopefully, from that. Nothing's changed a lot. As you know, we don't have much control over the top of the line dealing with the personnel matters. The biggest change in the budget now is that we have now a full year, budget year of the new Assistant City Attorney, Amanda Palmera, which I am very grateful for, and the help that she's provided to me. The only oddity, I think, in the budget that you have is we are requesting, and the manager has suggesting a supplemental. We did, when we brought on Amanda, she being more technically savvy than I am, which has already proven itself to be helpful. We did bring on the Westlaw system, at least a portion of the Westlaw research system for her to use. And I have to tell you, last night during the long PLD meeting, with respect to one particular item and issue, it proved its worth by having her pull up a case, some obscure case out of Massachusetts Superior Court that I needed to see before we went any further. So it was very helpful to have that. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Oh, sorry.
Good evening. My budget starts on page 61. And when we submitted our budget to the city manager, it was a level-funded budget. But as the manager indicated, we had a hefty supplemental request, and we're very appreciative that she supported those items. They ranged from supporting that presidential primary, which will occur sometime in 2024, probably with not much notice, but sometime in 2024, we'll have a presidential primary. And the other supplemental budget line items dealt with the record center upgrading some equipment, and also very fortunate, very appreciative of the fact that the manager has funded a right-to-know software technology request, which would be a cloud application, so it actually appears in the IT budget. So for this year, I have identified 6 objectives. Only one of those has a financial impact, and that is the elections. The rest are really focusing the staff on several record series. As I sort of approach my retirement, we're doing an audit of all permanent record series just to make sure everything is shipshape and that we're not having any gaps in the permanent record series. And so that obviously is going to take a lot of focus and scrutiny. And one of the things that we have realized already is that our city charter amendments, which is probably, our charter is our most important document, there's gaps in that series. I can't explain it, it's way before my time, but we're working with the state archives to actually go up and research their records to backfill some amendments to our charters back in the earlier days. We also still want to do the charter amendment for the municipal primary. I've been waiting patiently to have you get over the bulk of these budget meetings, and I will be looking for the first opportunity that we're not using a evening in this chambers for a downtown project to bring the ad hoc committee, which is you, together to pick a solution for a charter amendment on the primary. Our other application, we really always try to do something with the council in terms of supporting services there. And there is another module that's in the Civic Plus platform, and it deals with board memberships. So we've been dealing with that process. We did have technology in place several years ago that has left us, and so we've been sort of limping along trying to find a next solution, and Civic Plus has that solution for us. So we are, at this point, keying in all of the 6 years of membership data for all the boards and commissions. It will be helpful for us in targeting demographics, which is something that Mayor Hansel was interested in when he became mayor, as to what are the demographics of our membership, and targeting potential new classes of citizens to actually utilize in our board's membership. And then there are some always with the Record Center. We have some technology that has now become dated, and we will be looking to replace that. So those were the supplemental items. Again, very appreciative of the manager's support, very excited about getting our hands around the right-to-know process and deploying some technology to better manage that. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Questions up here? Very good.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Dan Langell. Since the city attorney's budget is technically bigger than mine, I guess I should take less time. So, although I should point out my revenue is much bigger than his. So our assessing department, our functions pretty much stay the same. There's not much change in what we're doing from year to year unless we're doing a revaluation. So I'll just skip right to the budget part of it. So actually, for the third year in a row, you're going to see that our numbers are actually going to be decreasing. We are expecting our budget to decrease again this year. A big part of that is a couple years ago, we moved from 4 staff to 3 staff. That seems to be working out pretty well. And the other part is we had 2 retirements over the past couple years, so we now have new staff members, and they're coming in, lower at the scale. Both are doing excellent. Really proud of them and really optimistic about the future of the department. So yeah, overall, the budget's a $12,000 deduction from last year. With that, I can answer any questions anyone may have.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to finance. This is where all the money is.
Yeah, we spend a lot. We have the power. So I'm actually going to do just a brief overview, and then I'm going to have you see the faces that go with the names and everybody behind the scenes that do a lot of the work in each of the divisions that we have. Finance is made up of 4 divisions. We've got the accounting division, we have purchasing, we have revenue collection, and we have human services. So I am actually going to have Rob Constable, the assistant director, come up and do a brief presentation on the the finance, the accounting side of the budget, and then I'm going to have each of the department and division managers come up and present their little bit of their budget, just so you can just see them, because we sit in the corner way back on the 3rd floor and nobody comes past that little threshold by the copy machine. So we just want to make sure you see Eves and Sherry all the time because they're right there when you walk in, but no one ever comes by to our little corner. So, and you see Maria downstairs in revenue because she collects all the money. So anyways, Rob?
Good evening. I'm Rob Constable, Assistant Director of Finance. Just go over the major objective, as we discussed earlier, is we're implementing a new computer system for the organization, which is Munis. And as Elizabeth has said, there's been some challenges with that. As we go through the budget book, as Mary said, there'll be some changes as we learn more about the system. For this year, the big objectives is to implement payroll, the module for Munis, and the other one that we're currently working on is UB, utility billing for the sewer and water. That's projected to go live July 1st. We've implemented or updated the data within Munis. We've been doing some testing on the rates, meter sizes. We've worked with Neptune to go out and actually do live reads, import that into Munis. So right now we're doing quite a bit of parallel testing, and the goal is to go live come January 1st with the utility billing. We've gone live with tax last year. We've gone live with the general ledger last year, and like I said, right now we're also doing payroll. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about Munis if you have any. So, if not, I'll jump right into the budget for finances. Mary has says we have multiple departments under finance. On the revenue side, the big change, as everybody's aware of, is we're actually getting some interest income projected for next year. It's been relatively flat, but with the change in the market, rates are going up, so we do anticipate a fair amount of increase on interest income. Going into finance administration, one of the things that, again, Mary had mentioned earlier, you'll see some of the buckets have changed, particularly on personnel. We've regrouped them with the department head, supervisory, and then we go into a full-time, part-time grouping. So For example, on page 84, you'll see that wages full-time under administration have gone down, but under accounting, they've gone up because of the way we've categorized some of the positions and what orgs they've gone into. Overall, finance is relatively flat. On the operating side, the major change is on the administration side, payroll side, excuse me, and associated expenditures. And I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Questions? Good.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Maria Castellano. I am the revenue collector in finance. I would like you to, I don't have my page number, but our budget has changed minimally. If you look, it's actually gone down when you look at my total bottom line. Where we have seen our increases is in our cost of envelopes, paper, shipping, and mailing. Last year, calculation, we mailed out approximately 55,000 pieces of mail. So even when you have postage rate increase of even a penny, that can be significant to us. And I do expect that the post office will increase again in the coming year. It's kind of been a pattern. Envelopes has dramatically increased, and the weight of the envelopes is shipping. The only other addition you'll see in my supplementals is we will have training required this year. As a new collector, I'm required to be certified in my position. So where Mary, who retired, had completed that, so there was no budget line really for training. So myself and any new deputy that comes in are required to receive this certification. The other area is we acquired a new folding machine to complete our tax billing, water billing, motor vehicle letters that go out on a regular basis. The old machine had aged out. We got another machine, and so we budgeted for that. And then we have our maintenance agreement, so that kind of stuff. But pretty much everything else in our line is similar. On the salary portion, so with Mary retiring and starting the scale at a lower level, that levels off with, we requested an increase from our part-time staff. We have one position at 22.5 hours. We did request my second part-time position to be increased to 28 hours, which is vacant at the moment. The reason for that especially is we are looking to serve our customers in a more timely fashion, decrease our lines, make sure we're coverage during the lunchtime hours, and it's truly a service to our customers. And everything else is pretty much the same. Does anyone have any questions? Good boy. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So, what are we gonna do now that you're not in Public Works too? I'm just kidding.
Same water, different ship.
So, what I wanted to ask is, now that you have, I can't remember exactly when the city offered it, but online, being able to pay taxes and such, like, how has that impacted the department, and is it?
Yeah, it's a fabulous tool, and what I'm hoping to do, it's taken me a little while, obviously, to get my feet wet, oversee how things have been done in the department, how I'm seeing them, how I feel that things can be improved, and I definitely want to utilize our new communications department. I think we need to do a little bit more outreach to let customers know how easy it is. You know, change is hard a lot of times for our older population, but it really is super easy. So maybe we'll do a kind of like a PowerPoint and have that posted on our website saying, you know, these are the steps you have to take to accomplish that. We're very helpful when they call in. A lot of times they'll say, can you take our payment over the phone? And I always offer, would you like to do it online? I'll do it side by side with you so you can see. So even when they do that online, it comes in overnight, and the next day, we still have to produce that paperwork. So yes, it reduces the office traffic, but there's still work to be done on the back end. But it definitely is an advantage to our customers, and we get them out on a daily basis, so there's usually no delay. The only difficulty is sometimes people want to register that last day, and you're not going to get it. You know, it takes a day to come in and then another day to go out in the mail, especially the problem is if it lands on the weekend. But I think just communication will solve a lot of those issues for us and increase that level of service that we can offer.
I was thinking that's such a great thing that if you can go online now and pay these bills. I mean, because it puts us in the times that, you know, that's the way that so many of us pay our bills anyways, so.
And you know, one thing with our new Munis program is, and just through the training, like we're gonna be moving over to the water system in July. And when we were going and building into the program, they do offer an automatic service to customers. So like, if somebody wants to budget themselves and make a payment that they know is gonna cover their bill, we do have a lot of customers that have checks automatically sent from their checking account. So a lot of those things are very easy for them too. The inhibited, a lot of times online, is there's the credit card service fee. If they pay by check, it's a straight flat fee of $1.50. But when you start getting into adding on the 2.45 or the 2.95%, sometimes that shies people a little bit away from doing it online.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Very similar line of questioning. I'm wondering if we're going to be able to, through the new program, go to paperless billing so that I don't have to get the mail at my house?
I would love that. So we do offer that with motor vehicle. So one of my goals is to have my staff, when customers come in, I'm trying to capture phone numbers and email addresses. So eventually, hopefully, we mail out approximately right now about 9,000 letters, motor vehicle letters per year. It's hard to tell, so when I look at the state as our income, I can see approximately 2,000 come back in through the mail, but that doesn't mean customers aren't bringing their letter in and renewing it that way. But, so it's definitely generated from the letter, but they're not doing it through the mail.
Well, and I guess my question more specifically is on water, sewer, tax bills. Like, I get all that in the mail and I don't need that.
You know, with this new Munis program, we do have some abilities to do things. Once we get it all down and we're working with it and we work out any other issues, I'm seriously going to be looking into that because I see the advantage myself. And it would definitely help lower our postage expenses for sure.
That was my thought. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Anybody else?
Is that because you don't like to interact with people?
I
See
go
what-
online anyway.
See what we're doing? We're creating a whole different.
I go online to pay anyway, so I don't come in. I get the mail and then, yeah.
Why not? It's a convenience that we offer, and we hope that more people take advantage of it.
And we should definitely look at other fee providers. There are some that don't charge for debit transactions anymore, and a lot of people may be willing to do that. I wish I knew which one it was, but Brewbaker's just transitioned over to some payment provider that doesn't charge for debit.
Yeah, there's sometimes a minimal charge fee, and a lot of times that, you know, depending on who we have as our processor, sometimes it has to do with how the amount of money we're processing through them. And once we go to a single processor, we might be able to look at that in the future.
Awesome, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Good evening. I'll be quick. I have a few minutes before my bedtime. Eve Gakunde, Purchasing and Contract Services Manager. I will send you quickly to the bottom of page 84. We have a request for $2,500, and that is due to the increase of paper costs. And this is not just the paper used in purchasing or finance, but it's paper used by all the departments that are here at the City Hall, at the City Hall. So In the past, we have paid about $40 or less than $40 per case. Now we are paying about $60 per case, so there is a big increase. And that is driving the 2,500 requests. Thank you. Any question? Thank you.
Hello again. Natalie Darcy, Human Services Manager. Human Services provides short-term emergency financial assistance with housing, electric, cremation, home heating fuel, and prescription life-threatening medications. We instill an empathetic and empowering approach to providing assistance to those in need. The needs of those requesting assistance are met in the most beneficial and cost-effective manner possible, while respecting the confidentiality of the applicants. This is accomplished through fair and uniform application of the law and City Council approved guidelines while providing support and direction in the necessary life skills for applicants by Human Services. Now, with the COVID emergency ending, the New Hampshire Emergency Rental Assistance Program funding came to an end for most of their programs. Many of the clients have been referred back to City Human Services for assistance. Clients who are in hotels, mainly families, are still being covered and funded through the ERAP program through the end of June, but any Keene residents at that point would become city responsibility. And when that funding concludes, and we're hoping that there'll be some other funding that'll cover that, but we're not sure about that at this point. Human Services has had additional homeless individuals and families come for homeless assistance and placed in hotels. At one point during this past year, we have had 10 individual family rooms for hotel assistance where no space was available for families at the area shelters. Homeless assistance has been an all-time high, with individuals and families coming for assistance almost daily. Requests for rent and utility assistance have increased sharply. Human Services has been successful in preventing numerous evictions, but the high cost of rents has forced those who cannot afford the increases to come for assistance with the city to supplement that cost. There's a very real danger that families who do not receive rental subsidies could find themselves homeless due to the increases in the rents in the area. One client reported that his rent increased $400. Then 4 months later, the landlord sold the building. The new landlord increased his rent an additional $600. Most of our clients in this situation are on fixed incomes and cannot afford that type of sharp increases. Human Services is now seeing clients that now exceed pre-pandemic numbers. Electric disconnects have sharply increased as well, as with the sunsetting of the ERAP program. Many clients don't even know that the CAP agencies have stopped paying their electric bills, and the bills are staggering that we're seeing. They are anywhere between $500 to, we've seen as high as $7,500. Not that we're paying that, we pay a fraction just to get their services back on, but that leaves their bills to be very high. We also saw an increase in the amount of home heating fuel needed to make it through the season this year, as clients tended to get less fuel assistance, and we had to supplement with at the end of the season and the beginning of the season before fuel assistance took effect. Human Services continues to provide case management, participate in the Homeless Coalition and other groups to support the homeless in a wraparound fashion. We have been working with the hospital and Cheshire County House of Corrections to find solutions to those being placed in the streets of Keene following discharge from their facilities. We continue to collaborate with community partners in the area and provide many services clients needed. This year, Southwestern Community Services has requested an increase in their funding for the homeless shelter from $50,000 to $75,000. for the housing stabilization shelter programs. And they have not requested any increase in about 12 years, as a note. We also are adding a contract outreach worker to work with the homeless in the field and meet them where they are. Human Services continues to coordinate the holiday sponsorship program that assists about 280 individuals per year. And we are now using the HMIS, or Homeless Management Information System, to track many of the folks that we have in hotels. And that gives them the ability to come to top of area housing waiting lists, which is a real benefit to them, plus giving us more data to be able to show to you. Also, I worked on the ethics resolution with the New Hampshire Local Welfare Administrators Association and with Elizabeth on Senate Bill 110 relative to the administration of emergency shelter programs by cities and towns. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Go ahead. Thank you. Just one, the homeless outreach coordinator, does that mean MFS no longer has that role? Because they historically had that.
They're losing funding, partial funding for that role,
Okay.
for the PATH outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Beth Fox, Assistant City Manager, Human Resources Director. It's almost past my bedtime too, so I get up early. Rob touched on it a little bit, but Human Resources has been working hard with its partners this year on the payroll implementation project. We had I think a really strong role in the front end in designing the job classes and the things that, kind of like build the backbone of what makes payroll. And then we've engaged now with the finance folks for the accounting components. We're optimistic at this point that we're moving towards an implementation on July 1 to kiss the new system. And then also looking forward to the next steps for HR in the new software program, which will be to build out the human capital management database. Our focus really has been building out the components that we need in the front phase to make sure that payroll will function effectively and accurately. And so we'll be then moving on to the database systems, the recruitment, the performance management, and the other tools that this application should give the department. This transformation has actually allowed us to change some workflows in the organization and create a structure where we have data or set up and verify of transactions now that are related to employee actions where we did not before. And in doing that, we've actually, it actually ended up shifting some responsibility to the HR department that hadn't been ours before, but I think is important to maintain integrity of our systems. And that is a big component of probably the largest change in the HR budget this year, which is a personnel adjustment, moving a part-time position in the department to a full-time status. That position will also be where we focus some of the other financial aspects of HR. I don't think people think of us in the first instance as a finance department, but we deal with a lot of financial functions. We deal with bill reconciliation for health insurance. We deal, that's only a $4.5 million adventure for the department. And the joy of health insurance reconciliation is it's always a moving target. So the biggest change in our budget is this position adjustment. The position adjustment is also focused on some of the succession planning needs for the department. I'm fairly certain that in the next 2 years that more than half most of the department you have for human resources is probably going to be entirely staffed with folks that have less than 5 years' experience in the city. Where we know in the short term, we have a big shoe to fill with a 20-year employee leaving in the next fiscal period. And although I didn't really feel very old until Elizabeth started talking about it tonight, I'm starting to feel pretty old too. So, well, I don't. But it's important to me that we try to stage the department, because if we aren't prepared to manage that change, other pieces in the organization will not be either. So as you look at the HR budget, the biggest change is in the personnel lines, and they do primarily relate to that position shift. There is a small adjustment in the HR operating component, which is focused on training, and that training really is to integrate expected personnel additions this coming year with into both the human resources government aspect of their duties, which can be a little different, even if we get someone who's got a background in human resources than the private sector. And I don't think that was me, but it could have been. I'm good with that. So as we talked about a little bit, I've talked about a couple of times, the new budget reorganized some activity. We no longer have a large allocation in citywide benefits related to COLA. The COLA adjustments are all I'm going to say farmed out. It might not be the right word, but farmed out to the department level. So instead of having a pool of money that was sitting in citywide benefits, that is distributed. Some other costs that were in that bucket because of our new software were also very easy to distribute. We always had a centralized bucket for part-time health insurance. We've now been able to move those costs easily out to the department level, so more accurately reflecting the activity for those locations. The second part of citywide benefits is the non-personnel side, and there are a few supplemental requests in that section too. The first one is in addition to professional services, and its focus is to bring in someone to work with a city staff committee and city departments on DEI and workplace culture. And then the second new initiative is funding in training to do some additional citywide training across departments, and leadership-focused training, and also continue to use e-learning platforms. We have had what we think has been a pretty positive experience doing some e-learning platforms with employees across the organization. The nice thing about those platforms is that they're very easy. It's very easy to deploy across the organization, and we can make it easy for people to do and engage with on their time, not necessarily at time X when we offer training. The final adjustment in that section of the budget, which is a supplemental, is additional funding for tuition assistance. Last year, probably post-pandemic related, tuition assistance requests from city employees were very low. This year, we have 9 employees who have submitted requests for tuition assistance for varying certification and degree programs. The full request that they made, that the full aspect of those requests was not funded, but we have funded employees seeking that assistance at a 5-course level for the upcoming year. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and apologize if the fact that I'm up past my bedtime has me a little scattered.
I know 3.5 hours into a meeting, you guys want to talk about IT, so it's very exciting.
Yes.
Andrew Mueller, IT Director. Good evening. It's still evening, I think. So it's been a busy year for us, for sure. We're working on a phone replacement project, which
besides the 270-odd phones that we're replacing, there's an infrastructure behind it, networking that has to get replaced. With the help of Public Works, we brought Martel Court online, which means we brought fiber to that facility and networking equipment, phones and stuff like that. So it provides easier accessibility for them and some flexibility, which was really great. You've heard Munis a lot tonight. We're part of the Munis implementation as well. And then, of course, security is our security upgrades, our security software that we use is a constant day-to-day struggle and battle. And then our big thing is Microsoft 365. So some of you guys, all of you guys, hopefully at this point, have Office 365. You've probably noticed a different way to log into your email. That's all part of this big project. It's going to be multi-year, and we're in the first year of that right now. That's kind of some of the stuff we've been working on. That's about 4 or 5 projects. I think I counted about 32 projects we had going in this past year. So that's just 5 of the big ones. Sorry, my budget starts around page 90, I think, so I'm on 94 here. The top section, personnel, Rebecca had talked about that a little bit. That position, the assistant IT director position got moved out into under the city manager. And then, so that helped our bottom line there. The middle section is the operations, our operations budget. That's where we have our software licensing, which always goes up every year. That's just kind of the way that happens. Again, cybersecurity is still top on our priority list. With that comes not only detection and prevention, but also user education. We do environment and user testing. That's all part of that. This year, we're in between, or we're in year 2 of multi-year contracts for a lot of that software, so that line item actually dropped a little bit. That's not a trend that's going to keep going. Eventually, we're going to have to renew those, that software. And then the other big piece that affected that section was the Penimation, the old financial software, is incrementally being sunset. So we were able to basically cut in half what we're paying for it, and so that really helped that operating budget. It actually dropped it below last year. Again, not a trend that's going to continue, but we'll take the wins while we can get them. And then the last account on that page is the cloud applications. You've heard a little bit of that as well tonight. That's where Munis, the big financial software, is budgeted for, as well as Microsoft 365 is in there as well. And then there's a myriad of other cloud applications throughout the organization. That's it in a nutshell. I don't want to go too detailed. I know it's pretty late, but if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer that before we move on to the final account.
Questions?
Excellent. And then around page 174-ish, is that right? Yeah, PC replacement. So we're going to be replacing about 63 systems, we're going to be replacing 63 systems this coming year. That's a fair amount. It's going to keep us busy as well. We're fortunate that prices have kind of stabilized, at least in the hardware market. They were definitely on a rocket ride up to the moon for a while. They are starting to compress a little bit, which is good. Also, procurement of the hardware is starting to get a little easier. Network devices are still tough. Access points, switches still have 6-month lead time, which makes it kind of difficult to plan for those things. However, PCs and laptops, they're kind of in that 4 to 6 weeks now. It makes it easier for us to buy those and get the best deals we can for the right technology. And then finally, we're staying with our 4-year replacement schedule for laptops and tablets, and that's just to kind of help out with the replacement account balance. But that's it. That's the quick and dirty on that, if there's any questions on that.
Questions?
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any final comments for us, Madam Manager?
Fire police.
Yeah, no, just looking forward. Wednesday, May 17th is another early start at 5:30 PM, and we'll be reviewing fire, library, parks and recs and facilities, police, airport, and community development.
Thank you very much, everyone.